Hey, Kat, ready? Okay, excuse me. I'd like to call the special meeting of the Town Council of January 24th to order. If our clerk could please take the attendance.
Councilmember Rennie?
Here.
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Hudis?
Here.
Vice Mayor Badami?
Here.
Mayor Rista?
Here. Okay, thank you. And now if we can roll our video on meeting decorum and rules.
The public is welcome to participate at Town Council meetings, understanding that the purpose of the meetings is to conduct the important business of the town in an efficient and effective manner. At each meeting, the following expectations of civil conduct shall apply. 1. For the benefit of the entire community, the Town of Los Gatos asks that all speakers follow the town's meeting guidelines by treating everyone with respect and dignity. This is done by following meeting guidelines set forth in state law, in the town code, and on the cover sheet of the council agenda. 2. The town embraces diversity and strongly condemns hate speech and offensive hateful language or racial intolerance of any kind at council meetings. 3. Town council and staff are well aware of the public's right to disagree with their professional opinion on various town issues. However, antisocial behavior, slander, hatred, and bigotry statements are completely unacceptable and will not be tolerated in any way, shape, or form at Town Council meetings. 4. All public comments at the Town Council meeting must pertain to items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the town and shall not contain slanderous statements, hatred, and bigotry against non-public officials. 5. The town will go through the following steps if a disturbance results from a member of the public not following these rules. If participating remotely, town staff may mute the individual with an explanation for the record of why muting occurred consistent with this policy. If participating in person, the mayor may call a recess for violation of this policy, resulting in the immediate cessation of the audio and video recording and the council exiting the chamber. Staff will determine if the individual should be removed or if all members of the public should leave, depending on the extent of the disturbance. In the event that all public members exit, only the press would be allowed back in the meeting. Once the individual or individuals leave, the council would return to the chamber and the mayor would resume the meeting. Persons disrupting a council meeting may be cited for violation of the California Penal Code Section 403. These expectations of conduct also apply to meetings of all town boards, committees, and commissions.
Thank you. So as we're moving into this meeting, I just want to remind everyone this is a special meeting, and so we only have one topic of discussion. And in a meeting like this, we don't take verbal communication on any other issue. So we will launch into this first item, and I'm pleased to see a large turnout. And your opportunity to speak will be after we start the item and get the report from staff. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Laurel Pervetti, your town manager. Thank you so much for holding our annual session on strategic priorities. This is an opportunity for the council to hear from its public about the policy priorities for Los Gatos and for you to consider them within the existing framework of strategic priorities. We've been working on multi-year strategic priorities now for several years now, and many of them have evolved to meet the emerging needs of Los Gatos. So last time a year ago, Council identified safety as one very important category. This includes public safety in terms of traditional police services, as well as other aspects of safety such as emergency preparedness and fire protection. The second area, and this is not in any priority area, order. It's just in the order of being able to speak, and thank you for putting the chart up for the public to follow. The second concept is around prudent financial management. The council has been very proactive, along with its finance commission, to identify ways for the town to be fiscally sustainable. We've put a lot of effort in addressing our unfunded pension and other post-employment benefit obligations. We've made terrific progress. We have also made great progress in terms of other revenue measures, but there's clearly more work to do. Traffic and transportation has been a priority for Los Gatos for many, many years, whether it's beach traffic, school traffic, neighborhood safety, et cetera. And this continues to be on the list and an opportunity for you to affirm and refine tonight. And then quality of life is really one of our biggest categories. It encompasses everything from land use, community character, community vitality, economic vitality, all the great work that we do with our partners within our community, as well as the land use items that are underway, such as the housing element and some key ordinances that you will be considering. So in your memo this evening, you have received some guidance in terms of how to consider the items for tonight. As outlined in the staff memo, we are constrained in terms of staff capacity. We have a lot of great work that's underway in all of the areas that I just mentioned, but we do want to complete some of this work that was outlined in the report. We have a lot of good things that are happening underway. We've started to make investments, and we would really like to be able to see those to conclusion so then council can take the next steps that are associated with them. In your packet are addendum and desk items that contain significant public comment. We've heard a lot from the Los Gatos residents and other organizations that care about our town, and I know all of you take our public comment very seriously, and it's great to see the audience here tonight to affirm some of those comments. So this evening, you've got your director team and other managers and leaders within the town to help you as you refine and affirm your strategic priorities. Some of them may need a little bit of tweaking to modernize the language and to better encompass the things that you care about and that you're hearing from your constituents. And for that, we are here. Tonight, I just want to remind you, is at the higher policy level. This is not a budget hearing. Our budget direction topic is scheduled tentatively for February 21st. At that time, you'll be considering the 5-year forecast. You'll have a sense of our resource capacity for the next year, and then you'll be able to give us specific budget direction in terms of allocation of resources and what you would like to see in the next proposed budget. But certainly setting your policy priorities is important. Also, as part of this discussion, our town attorney has put together a list of ordinances. Some of them are state mandates, and then others are refinements to existing codes and policies that we think are really needed in order to address our community's needs. So we've done our best to identify those priorities, but you also will have the opportunity to put them in the order that you would like. And with that, we're all here to support you this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Manager. So to my fellow council people, if we have any very high-level questions, we can ask those right now. Otherwise, I think we'll leave our comments until after the public input. Councilmember Hudes.
Thank you. On the process, as we're evaluating these strategic priorities, do we anticipate taking a vote on the set of strategic priorities and also on the priorities of the ordinances?
So one of the things the mayor and I talked about was how we could structure the evening. And if I may, one of the thoughts we had was we might start with the ordinances. So that way you can say, number 5 really should be number 4, that sort of thing. In the past, it's been pretty much by consensus, but if you would like to memorialize your priorities with a motion and a vote, that is certainly fine. And then, and this would be after hearing all the public testimony. So we definitely want to hear from our public first. And then we would move into the strategic priorities by category. So we would talk about safety first, make whatever refinements necessary, then move on to the next category, et cetera. And as there might be a variety of opinions on the council, if you feel a vote and a motion would be helpful, that's fine. But I know in the past, our council has found consensus and compromise along the way.
And if I could just follow up, in the last 2 years, did we take a vote on any of these items?
I think we may have, yes. Yeah, I think we might have,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Right, so thank you for that. I think after we take public comment and we work through it, certainly, in areas where we're talking about the ordering of the ordinances, we can take a vote, or if we want to refine some of these priorities or take something off, we can look for consensus, so we'll work through that.
And Mayor, I wasn't suggesting that we do that. I was just really trying to find out what the process was, so thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now, not seeing any further questions, first of all, we have some people on Zoom. We have a full crowd. I want to thank you all for being here. I want to also let you know that, as the manager mentioned, we did receive a very large volume of email from our constituents, and I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone who took time to write into it. Speaking for myself, but I think I can speak for the council, every one of those letters was received and read. So we have those in our heads and here. We have a lot of people to speak. I want to hear from everyone. We all do. But if you hear, after a while, if you hear somebody speaking and 3 people and they're saying a similar thing, somebody could stand up and say, everyone who agrees with me, please stand, or something. If you all want your 3 minutes, that's fine. Everybody gets 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes. And when your time is up, your time is up. You may finish your sentence, but you may not go any further. We need to be strict with our time and to be fair. Okay? All right. I will start with, I'm just going to go in order here, and I might go back and forth to Zoom, but I'll start with Shai Venkat.
Do I speak into the mic?
Yes, it should be on. Come close to the microphone, introduce yourself, and
My name is Shailaja Venkatasubramanian. I've lived in Los Gatos for more than 12 years and followed a plant-based lifestyle for nearly 30 years. I am aware that the most common stereotype of someone with my inclinations is that of a scrawny, protein-starved, self-righteous, obsessive, depressing preacher who cares more about animals than about humans. To be honest, I quite enjoy the jokes. More importantly, I'm glad that we're at least talking about this lifestyle that's on the rise across the globe. Based on scientific data, I'm convinced that plant-based diets are a cost-effective way to solve many of our climate and health problems. According to the UN's Food and Agriculture Organization, livestock contributes to 14.5% of global human-induced greenhouse emissions. The climate impact of plant-based food is smaller than that of animal products. When it comes to health, numerous studies have shown that consuming animal products can be detrimental to our health. Regular meat consumption is associated with an increased risk of conditions such as heart disease, pneumonia, diverticular disease, diabetes, and several cancers. When humans are confronted with data that go against commonly held beliefs and culture, the natural tendency is to reject it. It takes effort to look at scientific data and make changes. We want good health for ourselves and our loved ones. We want to leave a healthy planet for future generations. To this point, I want to ask the town to please fund plant-based education programs. An example of such a program, the library and plant-based advocates are hosting speakers this spring, and it is really important to keep this program going all year. But we will need funding from the town to have it continue. We have a fantastic speaker coming on February 6th at 4 p.m. at the library to talk about food justice. This aligns really well with the town's diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. The talk will cover important topics like how can we provide access to healthy food for everyone. In short, let's make taking proactive steps to address climate and health issues a priority. It will not cost the town very much to fund programs to educate our residents to take care of themselves and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you. I also want to remind people, I don't want to call you out, come and talk to us about strategic priorities. We'll be talking about funding in February. And so we're not going to be making any budget decisions tonight, just to be clear. Okay, thank you. Our next speaker is Nancy Roulette.
Good evening, Mayor Bristow, Vice Mayor Badami, and council members. I'm Nancy Roulette, Executive Director of Los Gatos Saratoga Recreation. We recognize that this is a defining moment for the town, and decisions made now will affect the community well into the future. You've received a proposal from our agency seeking partnership, in which the town provides lease abatement for the adult and youth recreation center buildings, and the agency provides staffing, financial management programs and services necessary to serve over 31,600 customers a year. The arrangement is one in which we propose town leadership has a stake in the agency and a position of authority and governance. As background for listeners, the town leases cost the agency $250,000 a year, and the 55-plus senior services associated with the ARC lease costs another $500,000. So taken together, it's $750,000 of benefit to the town, and it's fiscally unsustainable for us. Lease payments make very little difference to the overall town budget, roughly 0.5%, but the revenue we earn makes a big difference to us. This year, without the lease payments, we will break even. Revenue should stay with the agency to fund operations, curate more programs, and extend our reach. From a philosophical standpoint, no other rec department in the state of California pays for the use of space to conduct programs. It's an unnatural arrangement that does not support the philosophy of recreation and senior services as a community asset we're supporting. Our goals are specifically aligned with the existing town council strategic priorities in the area of community vitality. Diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts are represented with the resource page on our website and our daily actions. Creating community where older adults thrive is evidence of the success of the 55-plus program and the ARPA grant that helped to make that possible. Special events such as Santa Visits, Numu Family Art Day, Children's Parade are good examples, and the community engagement isn't something that we do every day. Without lease abatement, we will be forced to evaluate the use of facilities and the associated staffing that will directly affect the community. These difficult decisions will permanently alter our presence in Los Gatos. Our programs and services add to the town's unique identity, vitality, and sense of belonging. We're a social driver of enrichment and connection. We have won awards for our work, but we're the best kept secret in town, in that some folks don't understand that there's a struggle for us to operate by paying for use of space. To be clear, this is not a request to save the rec department. That is on our responsibility. This is about honoring existing priorities and aligning resources to support the community from cradle to grave. Please collaborate with us to continue our 67-year tradition of providing curated programs which support the town's existing priorities. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Amy Davis, who will be followed by Blake Thornberry. I'll cue people up so they know to be ready.
Good evening, Town Council and staff, and thank you for listening. I'm Amy Davis. I'm Executive Director of New Museum Los Gatos, NUMU, and I'm here today to encourage you to treat NUMU as an integral part of the town's strategic priorities by removing rent payments from our lease with the town of Los Gatos. Now more than ever, we provide critical services that make Los Gatos an amazing place to learn, to grow, to play, and in addition to attracting visitors from the greater Bay Area. So I'm asking the town to reduce rent for 106 East Main Street to $1 per year to support NUMU's ongoing responsibility to maintain and steward the town's history collection and provide arts, history, and cultural educational services to Los Gatos. This arrangement is in line with virtually every other museum city partnership in our region. By retaining the funds that NUMU obtains through donations and grants, it will allow us to recirculate them into more services and programs that ultimately serve the town. I want to express our ongoing gratitude for forgiving our rent these past few years, because it's helped us not only navigate the pandemic, but deepen our ability to serve the community. Rent forgiveness has enabled NUMU to achieve several key mission-aligned goals that directly support the town's priorities for local history, community vitality, inclusivity, and youth arts. NUMU is also a key feature of the town culture initiatives in the 2040 town plan. We've been working tirelessly on critical areas that support these goals, like the Los Gatos History Project, the Art Now High School Exhibition and Program, and collaborating with local beloved community partners like Los Gatos Library and Los Gatos Saratoga Recreation. I know this is not a new topic, but our circumstances demand that we advocate for this adjustment again. Expecting revenue from NUMU or the space we occupy, starting rent payments in July of $2,000 a month, significantly reduces our ability to be functional. Donors and funders have told me that they may begin to reduce or eliminate their contributions because they figure if the town doesn't support us, why should they? This will precipitate a downward trajectory where NUMU can only do the bare minimum to survive. This proposed lease amendment not only ensures the museum will exist in 2040, but that it will thrive for decades to come. Nominal rent would be in line with virtually every other museum city partnership and signal to the region that Los Gatos values inclusivity, community, and culture, cultivating pride in our town and in our roots. So please permanently reduce rent to $1 per year to support NUMU's critical role in maintaining and expanding the town's cultural footprint, moving towards a deep and permanent partnership. Thank you from all of us for making art and culture a strategic priority in Los Gatos.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Blake, followed by Lisanne Kennedy.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me again. Thank you all last week for your time, kind of with the extended comment from our neighborhood on the situation in Blossom Hill. Also, thanks to the police department as well. We've seen a large increase in patrol units out there conducting traffic enforcement and visibility on Blossom Hill Road. So thank you. What brings me here tonight, specifically kind of around the traffic and transportation priorities for the town. I think if you're in my neighborhood, I'm kind of in the very center part of the neighborhood. In the mornings and the afternoons, you'll see a stream of school children all departing their houses and crossing Blossom Hill Road, going to their various schools. I think there's Union Middle School, Lee High School, and Nodden Elementary School. And they're all riding their bikes and walking across Blossom Hill. So I would just like to reaffirm the support for the bicycle and pedestrian improvements. And this is kind of my context is for the Blossom Hill, but it's for, of course, this is for the entire town as well. And then secondly, the rush hour and school traffic portion. That I think is should continue to be a high priority. I think there's a lot of parents that probably are refraining from sending their kids on bicycles or walking to the schools across the street simply because crossing Blossom Hill may be too dangerous. So there may be some portion of traffic that's attributed to simply parents driving their kids to school. So I would just also like to help affirm my support for that item as well. And then if we're talking about refining any priorities, I don't see traffic safety or Blossom Hill traffic safety specifically called out on here. I don't want to detract from, I think the hard work that the town has done on traffic safety. If you drive through the town of Los Gatos, it's obvious to anybody traffic safety is a priority. Just want to make sure that we're extending that and completing it for all the boundaries of the city, even on the borderline edges. So that's kind of all I have, but thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker, Lisanne Kennedy, who will be followed by Maureen, Heedy.
Good evening, Mayor Risto and Town Council. I'm Lisanne Kennedy, the Recreation Coordinator of our 55 Plus program. LGS Recreation is requesting partnership with the Town of Los Gatos to ensure the continued success of the 55 Plus program. The town will provide governance and funding, and the agency will provide staffing, programs, and services. The proposed mid-plan represents a continuation of the ARPA-funded level of programming. 2022 ARPA funding highlighted what is possible with the town's financial support of the 55 Plus program. The program has evolved beyond expectation in membership, participation, programs offered, and the sense of community. In 2022, membership doubled to 730 members, which had previously not exceeded 400. This year, we already have over 340 excited members. In January 2022, we were running about 57 programs a month that were serving 330 participants, and by April, that increased to 130 programs serving over 1,000 participants each month. Our center is a central point for seniors seeking resources. The Hub resource page has had an average of 270 visits per month since its launch in September, and our phone line receives an average of 175 calls per month. We host and schedule appointments for third-party service groups, and included in the 2023 proposal is a case manager or social worker who would provide one-on-one appointments, host support groups, organize annual health fairs, and coordinate guest speakers. With increased participation in programs, a greater demand has been placed on our staff and our resources, and the full burden of operating the program at the current service level is now on our agency, and we cannot absorb the forecasted expense of $500,000. Without support from the town, programs and services will have to be significantly reduced or eliminated. The 55 Plus program is in a unique position to reach seniors at the highest risk of social isolation, preserving cognitive and physical function, as well as mental health. 80% of our members are over the age of 70, and 42% are over the age of 80. Accessibility to free or low-cost programs and services reduces financial barriers and increases the engagement to ensure successful aging here in Los Gatos, which meets the needs of our neighbors, parents, friends, and ourselves. So I encourage you, and it sounds like you have, read and recognized the letters of support written by members to hear directly how the 55 Plus program positively impacts their lives. We urge this council to continue to prioritize seniors by allocating funds to the 55 Plus program.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Maureen Heath, who will be followed by Joe Musser.
Thank you, Mayor, Town Council. My name is Maureen Heath, and I come to speak to you tonight as a long-term resident of Los Gatos. I'm also the chair of the Advisory Council for SourceWise, which is the area agency on aging for Santa Clara County. I'm on the Santa Clara County Senior Care Commission and the Los Gatos Senior Services Committee. 2 years ago, California initiated the Master Plan on Aging and instituted 5 bold goals for older adults, including housing for all ages, health reimagined, equity and inclusion, not isolation, caregiving and caregiving support, and affordable aging. We're now 2 years after the state of California started this master plan, and last week they initiated 92 new initiatives to implement the 5 goals for the master plan on aging by the year 2030. Los Gatos has prioritized older adult services, and I thank you for that. There's so many reasons why we need to be sure and prioritize older adult services here in Los Gatos. As we age in place, we need to have meaningful activities for our older adults so that they can continue to contribute to society and live independently. I thank you for all you've done on behalf of the older adults, and I'm very pleased that Los Gatos is age-friendly for all ages. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe Musser, who will be followed by Alicia Heyer.
My name's Joe Musser. I'm in favor of providing a warming and cooling shelter for the homeless in Los Gatos. And maybe there's plenty of churches in the downtown area that probably have space in their buildings to provide shelter for the homeless during inclement weather during the winter and excessive heat during the summer. So I'm in favor of that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you. Alicia Heyer, and you can help me with your last name.
Hello, my name is Alicia Heyer.
Hi.
I am currently in this town. I've been here for about 6 months. And I encourage you to use your tax dollars wisely and invest in a homeless shelter. I need a shower more than once a week. Health concerns have become apparent, and I've had yeast infections under my breast. It's personal, but you need to know. 3 days a week would be good for showers. And there are 3 needs for survival that I learned in grade school: shelter, clothes, and food. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Tim O'Rourke, who will be followed by Peter Hertan.
Hello, Council. My name is Tim O'Rourke, and I've been a resident here in Los Gatos since 2005, and I represent the St. Vincent de Paul Council here in St. Mary's Church in Los Gatos. And we work with the unhoused, and I would like to lift up the unhoused voice for a warm and cooling shelter, because I personally witnessed 80 people in the Red Cross Camden shelter residing there during the recent storms. I personally referred people to that center who were here in Los Gatos who had nowhere to go. And I heard stories about other members who were encountered homeless, unhoused people who had no dry clothes, no dry sleeping bag, and no tent. And it bothered me. And I think we can do better. So what I'm asking is that you include in the strategic plan warming and cooling centers, because it's the compassionate thing to do. Thank you.
Thank you. Peter Hertan will be followed by Rob Stump.
Good evening, and I'm here to speak for enhancing the priority of emergency preparedness, certain aspects of it. In particular, we learned some lessons from the recent activation of the Emergency Operations Center as a result of the storms. We learned that we have radios that are needed to supplement the outages when cell phones go down, when Frontier landlines go down, which happened, and so apparently the town staff lost their ability to communicate by telephone. So using GMS radios is one example, but we need have, in addition to radios, we need to have more repeater locations and antennas to provide widespread coverage throughout all of Los Gatos. Beyond the GMS radios to supplement the existing communication systems, there's a need for enhancing the Emergency Operations Center itself, at least for the communications aspects. I was one of the volunteers that staffed the communications desk, as several of you are. And so we need to have more space and more segmentation of areas so that we can support 4 concurrent radios. Beyond the EOC, we also have a need for producing more incident command posts. Right now, we have about 12,000 families or households in Los Gatos, and we have 6 well-staffed emergency incident command posts. We need to get to 12. There's an additional 1,000, which means families, which means an additional incident command post from Montesrino. They're funding that. We need to provide the funding for the expansion of the number of incident command posts in town, as well as upgrade the facilities of the existing ones. So beyond the incident command posts, the Emergency Operations Center, and the radios, there's the need for people. So you have on your priorities for outreach and training of CERTs. Beyond that, you have to add infrastructure. But the thing we've learned so I've been a volunteer within ICPs for since 2010. And the one thing that's clear is we need a better way of reaching out and getting more volunteers. So that will take some funding. And that has to be done by third parties who specialize in that. And lastly, we need a full-time emergency coordinator. We've tried for 3 or 4 years to use part-time. That has not worked out. So the last time we had somewhat of a full-time was when we had a sergeant within the police department who did that. It's appropriate to have it done at the town manager's office. The town manager needs to be funded to have a full-time emergency coordinator. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Rob Stump, followed by Kylie Clark.
Thank you, Council, for the opportunity to speak on strategic priorities this evening. But first, a moment that I can't let go by. I want to thank somebody in this room, and that person is Arn Andrews, for what he has done for wildfire and wildfire resilience for this community over the past several years. We would not be where we are today without Arn's leadership. And Arn, there are too many accomplishments to bring up, so just thank you from the community of Los Gatos for what you've done. As we think about 2023 and beyond, we've got to keep our focus in the area of wildfire on saving lives. This guided the prioritization of the Ad Hoc Wildfire Committee back in 2020. So this evening, I want to encourage the council to continue that focus in 3 areas: emergency communications, emergency evacuation, and roadside fuel reduction. Emergency communication. This past year, we began researching the installation of a speaker-based warning system throughout the hillside of Los Gatos. We discovered that system would cost about $1.5 million. Other communities around the state of California are implementing those systems as well. In the North Bay, the East Bay Hills, Oakland, Berkeley Hills, they need one more layer of communication redundancy. Good communication saves lives. There is grant money available, so I don't have to come and say, let's get more money from Los Gatos. Grant money is available, but we got to get on it. We got to check all the boxes. Emergency evacuation. Clear evacuation is critical to saving lives. In Los Gatos, we are challenged, as we all know, with the lovely narrow roadways that we have, but they do not allow for in and out with streets that have less than 20 feet of clear width. We've got to have 20 feet of clear width to facilitate safe evacuation. We need to assess all the evacuation routes to determine where we have substandard street width. Until this work is done, we won't know what needs to be done to facilitate safe emergency evacuation. Roadside fuel reduction, lots of work in this area. Around 13 miles has been facilitated so far out of the 31 miles that's in the high fire zone in Los Gatos. So more than $1 million has already been spent. We're getting $700,000 this year from Build Back Better. So we're on our way to getting that 31 miles, but we need another $500,000 in the FY 23-24 budget. I would also encourage the council to bring back the Ad Hoc Wildfire Committee to do a couple of things. Take a look at what we have accomplished and what we need to be focused on going forward. I would bring the same team back for continuity. Finally, I want to thank the town for successfully going out and seeking funds. We need to continue to do that. We must also look at sources of long-term funding to not only make us safer today, but make us safer tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Kylie Clark, who will be followed by Ed Lozowicki.
Hello, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Kylie Clark, and I'm the Assistant Manager of Advocacy and Public Policy at West Valley Community Services and a citizen of Los Gatos. I'm also a Los Gatos Planning Commissioner, but I'm not speaking in that capacity tonight. On September 20th, I came and gave public comment on the nights when it was freezing cold, telling you all that we need shelters for our unhoused community members, and we weren't prepared, and that we need to be prepared next time because we don't have the capacity to just make it happen overnight when the time comes when we need it. And we needed it, and we weren't prepared. And so I really, really want to encourage us to be prepared in the future, and I think a great way to do this is adding homelessness as a strategic priority. But mostly what I want to do is just to encourage you to remember the voices that matter most, and those are the voices of people with lived experience. And so we actually have a lot of them here tonight, which is super amazing, and those closest to the problem are also closest to the solution, which I think is really important to remember, and to remember that they have to literally go sleep outside after this tonight, and that shouldn't be happening in our town and their residents, just like anybody else. And I think that it's really important to remember that, and that we need to take care of them just as we take care of our housed residents in Los Gatos. Thank you.
Thank you. Ed Lozowicki, who will be followed by Steve Hall.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and members of the council for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Ed Lozowicki. I've been a resident with my family for 40 years here in Los Gatos. I have been a member of St. Mary's Church for that many years, and I'm a volunteer for the St. Vincent de Paul Society, which is an affiliate of the church, but a separate nonprofit. Our mission is to help the poor and needy. It's all volunteer on the part of our group here. We provide services for the homeless population of Los Gatos, such as cleanliness supplies, laundry vouchers so they can get their laundry done, emergency housing if somebody is stuck and needs to get into a motel, for example, gasoline for those who live in their car or vans. The homeless population here is very varied. It's been a wonderful experience for me to talk to them and find out how they got where they are and how they're coping with their situation. Many of them are mentally or physically disabled from working full-time. Some of them have had family problems that prevent them from living with their families. They live outside in tents and sleeping bags. I talked to them during the latest storms 3 weeks in a row at the United Methodist Church, where I volunteer to provide laundry vouchers and hygiene supplies for the population. The folks I spoke with there who had just been through the flooding caused by the rains, who lost their personal possessions, their tents, their sleeping bags, in some cases, their clothing. One gentleman who was flooded out wound up sitting in a tree for 12 hours in order to avoid the floodwaters. These folks, when I spoke with them personally, were shaken, some shivering, all dirty with mud, many of them wet from all of the rain that they couldn't avoid because there was no place to go. So I'm asking, as a public safety element of the strategic plan, that the council address the needs of the homeless in this community, and in particular during extreme weather such as we've just had, provide, in conjunction with the churches that do volunteer services, some kind of warming center so people can get out of the rain and get out of the cold. The city of San Jose does this, the city of Campbell does this. I think we can do it too. It's these folks, many of them have lived here for a long time. They're citizens just like the rest of us and deserve better. So I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you, sir. Okay, our next speaker is Steve Hall, who will be followed by Jan Schwartz.
Good evening, Town Council. It's a real pleasure and honor to be in front of you. I couldn't put it any better than what Ed just talked about in terms of the need and the safety of our homeless population. But I also want to say that I've been lived in Los Gatos for 30 years. My two daughters have gone through from Van Meter to graduate from Los Gatos High School. They now have a family and kids. These folks are our family, many of which have gone that same route, have gone through Los Gatos schools, have lived in Los Gatos. So as a community, I just implore that we treat them with that kind of respect, that they're our brothers, they're our sisters. They could be our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents. So I think that Mahatma Gandhi sounded best. He said, "The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members." These are our sons and daughters. And I just implore you to look at it in that fashion. And I'm advocating for this to be a strategic initiative that is long-lasting, lifelong-lasting. How do we treat our family members? And also, it goes to quality of life and health and safety. Thank you so much for your time, and in particular, I've got to thank each and every one of you, because this is a choice that you have made to serve the community. You're sacrificing your time, you're sacrificing your efforts, and it really is, it's a blessing to me that you're sitting where you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Jan Schwartz, who will be followed by Dick Conrad.
That's hard to follow. I'm Jan Schwartz, and I've lived in Los Gatos since 1974, before some of you were born. Over there. I'm president of the board of NUMU, and I'm asking the town's support for our organization based on all the priorities that were outlined in our board letter to the council. So I'm not going over that. I'm speaking to add my personal message on the importance of the museum in enhancing the quality of life in Los Gatos and furthering the town priorities. I have degrees in art history, education, and business, a BA and 2 master's degrees. Should be worth a PhD, right? But my work on the board addresses all of these aspects of my background. The museum is a center for art, current and historical. Our art program includes a wealth of diverse artists from Los Gatos and from the community around and beyond. Art Now engages high schools throughout all of Santa Clara County, with currently over 500 students submitting work for display at the museum. About 75 of these works will be displayed at the museum, bringing families from all over the county, some who've never been in a museum before. This addresses element PFS item X on the priorities list, displaying youth art. It's there, and it's great. Our history collection of over 3,000 items is being cataloged and available in person and to anyone with access to the internet. We have a robust education program, working with schools throughout Santa Clara County, hosting them at the museum and traveling to classrooms. These efforts supplement a school curriculum, which is sadly lacking in the arts. My business degree focused on marketing and prudent financial management. Marketing is essential to the success of any cultural institution, to attract Los Gatos and the diverse population surrounding us. A prudent business approach compels us to request rent of $1 a year. So that's a theme we've mentioned before, thanks. In other museums in the Bay Area, this is the standard as shown in our addendum. Our sources of revenue are admission, which is free to Los Gatos residents, programs, which were shut down during the pandemic and are slowly building now with great effort and new initiatives and partnerships, including Los Gatos Rec and the library and the town council. Grants, we've received federal and county recognition well beyond Los Gatos, and donors. We request that the town of Los Gatos partner in the form of rent forgiveness for our space in the town plaza and in recognition of our contribution to being an outstanding enhancement to the quality of town life and a center for community vitality. Thank you.
Thank you. Right to the second as well. Okay, Dick Conrad, who will be followed by Tyler Taylor.
Hi, I'm Dick Conrad, and I want to first thank you for what you've done to allow us to increase substantially the senior services in our community last year. I've been a part of both implementing and monitoring that activity, and I will have a report that has been approved by the Community Health and Senior Services Commission to you on how we performed to our goals last year, and that was just approved tonight, so you will be receiving that. Secondarily, I've been involved in the future, and the future is pretty tremendous for senior services. The senior committee has come up with a tremendous plan to both build on the momentum that we've already have, but to look to the future to even enhance this. So I urge you to look at all the data that's being presented to you and prioritize the senior services in our committee, and I'm really proud to have been a part of all of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Tyler Taylor, who will be followed by Katrina Brinkman.
Hello, good evening, Council. Thank you, Mayor Ristow, Vice Mayor Badami, and Council and staff.
My name is Tyler Taylor. I'm the Executive Director for SASE. We operate the Saratoga Senior Center, Saratoga Adult Care Center. We're the fiscal sponsor and agent for the Safe Rides program of Los Gatos. I'm also the founder and operator of the RIDE Senior Transportation Program and executive editor and publisher of the Outlook community newspaper. Before my comments, I also want to echo Rob Stump's thanks to Arn. Arn, you are a champion for community services, for service providers, and I think they're going to need Sasquatch to fill those shoes. You did a fantastic job, and it was an honor to present you with the Community Service Award for Excellence at the Health Fair this past year. Thank you, and best of luck to you. My comments tonight are twofold. One is to tip my hat to the services and the efforts that have been made by the town, by the Community Health and Senior Services Commission, and the Senior Committee in designing and putting together the roadmap for senior services. It's been something that has been tangible. It's made a lot of waves throughout Santa Clara County. I'm the former chair of the Santa Clara County Senior Care Commission. It's put Los Gatos on the map in that regard, and so my hat is tipped to everyone. One of my favorite hats that I wear, that I'm here tonight to really speak on behalf of, is as board member of KCAT, which is, I'd say, the best TV station in all of Santa Clara County. They do wonderful programming, but what they did with the investment from the town as part of the ARPA funding of starting the Producers Network was just nothing short of incredible. Their goal was to start out with 30 participants, and they have well over 125 people in that program. They're not a senior services agency, but they did something that is very rare and very difficult to pull off, and they did it with grace and ease, and so I give my credit to them. Second thing I'd like to talk about is strategic priorities when it comes to ordinances. At a time that the council and the town is facing really unprecedented financial decisions that you'll need to make, some of us in the senior services community and other service providers community have to find entrepreneurial and creative ways to sustain ourselves while you all figure out the tough questions in front of you. One of the things at Saratoga that we pushed for there is an ordinance to allow for bingo, so that service providers and organizations could run games that would allow us to provide a sustainable source of revenue. While we, put forth recommendations to council members such as yourself for other funding, we need to find a way to do it ourselves as well. So in Saratoga, we have a model. The boilerplate language is really available from the state. It does allow municipalities to provide the permits. And just as of this afternoon, we were granted our bingo license in Saratoga. And so we will be starting our games there. It's doable here in the town, and as a board member of KCAT, I know myself, our board, and others in the community would love that opportunity. So thank you very much, and best of luck.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Katrina Brinkman, who will be followed by Karen Rubio.
Good evening. I am speaking to traffic this week. I spoke last week. I live on Gatos Lane near Blossom Hill. My schools are Nodden and Union, and I walked my kids daily to Nodden. Here are the options for leaving my neighborhood if I need to head east. If I leave my house and head to the intersection of Gatos and Blossom Hill, is 0.3 of a mile. If I go around to Harwood and turn left there at the single signal and end up at Gatos, Blossom Hill, is 1.1 miles. This is adding 0.8 of a mile to my journey. Days where the intersection is very busy, I will make a right onto Blossom Hill, get into the left lane immediately so I can turn into Copeland. I am then forcing traffic from the Blossom Hill into the right lane. I will do a U-turn on Copeland and then make a right onto Blossom Hill. I am therefore crossing the intersection twice and adding to the problem. I could exit West Hill and make a left, but it's too close to where it opens to 2 lanes heading east. Lots of lane changing and speeding occurs there. And when heading back to my neighborhood, I make a turn onto West Hill, and I always feel like I'm going to be clipped by cars behind me speeding. Honestly, leaving Bellwood Gateway isn't much better. Gatos Road backs up to 6+ cars in the AM, mostly due to parents leaving Mulberry, and as you know, parents who are stressed for time getting other kids to school or getting to work take more chances. Many times when I turn left to return to my neighborhood on Gatos Road, I've almost been hit by cars trying to make a left into me. Thank you, thank you, thank you to the continued police presence. Please pass that on. We noticed multiple times police cars driving our street or driving Blossom Hill, doing U-turns, driving there about 3 times. Thursday, I saw a meter counting traffic when I was leaving Bel Gatos at 2. They were gone by 3:15 when I was picking up my high schooler. There is a speed meter on Blossom Hill prior to Bel Gatos, but it isn't always working. I met with the family that lives on the corner of Bel Gatos and Blossom Hill this AM to make sure they are aware of our presence this evening. They have seen repeated cars destroy the brick fence there, 2 in the last 5 years, and they also comforted motorcyclists in the past that have had accidents there. This tragic accident that happened about a week and a half ago in the morning of Sunday, January 8th, not during the week, mind you, when there's more traffic, but a Sunday morning before 10 a.m., just added to what has happened at this corner. Our neighborhood is adding 2 homes this year, and an 11.9-acre lot is currently up for sale that can be subdivided. This last meeting, I suggested that you visit our beautiful area of Los Gatos, and I hope several of you were able to do that. I did want to point out that there are many members from the Bellevue, Bel Gatos neighborhood in the audience. Would you please raise your hand? Thank you for looking into traffic safety in our area.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Karen Rubio, who will be followed by Lisa Wade.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Council. My name is Karen Rubio, and I'm a 40-year resident of Los Gatos, and I'm here to represent plant-based advocates. World Wildlife Fund compiles a comprehensive study of trends in global biodiversity and the health of the planet every few years. It's called the Living Planet Report. Last year's report found that in the past 50 years, 69% of global wildlife has vanished from the face of the earth. I want to pause and let that sink in for a minute. In my lifetime, I'll be 62 this year, nearly 70% of the animals on the face of the earth are gone. Scientists are in nearly universal agreement about the cause of this catastrophic destruction: industrial animal agriculture. Production of meat and dairy is the leading cause of the biodiversity crisis and a major contributor to climate change, global pandemics, water scarcity, ocean acidification and dead zones, and many other serious issues that we are facing today. We are in the 6th mass extinction. Forests are being decimated for farmed animals and their feed crops, corn and soy. In fact, livestock production takes almost 80% of all agricultural land. There's only one way to counter the massive loss of habitat and resulting problems. We need to immediately reduce the production and consumption of animal products on a large scale. We need education about the health and environmental benefits of eating a plant-based diet to reach more people more effectively. The reason is compelling and the facts are solid, but the message just isn't getting through fast enough. Americans are barraged every day by advertisements enticing them to eat a mainstream diet. Our own government spends taxpayer dollars to promote a meat and dairy-centric diet, $38 billion per year to be exact. So it's very important that we counter that message. I'm going to skip because, of course, I wrote too much as usual. Our group, Plant-Based Advocates, has been working on this for quite a while, and we've achieved some great results with just a few volunteers and self-funding it. I'm really encouraged to hear people talk about our unhoused residents tonight. During the pandemic, our group served 560 full lunch boxes of homemade plant-based food to unhoused residents throughout Santa Clara Valley. We've also made inroads into providing healthful plant-based meals and milk to school children. We've had Zoom classes, and we're currently presenting a series of in-person classes together with the Los Gatos Library. We respectfully ask the council to make plant-based education programs a priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Wade, who will be followed by Nathan Vandegrift.
My name's Lisa Wade. I want to thank the Town Council so much for all of your hard work. I'm also with Plant-Based Advocates. I wanted to start by saying that Plant-Based Advocates definitely supports prioritizing our unhoused community members. Our request is also for the town to prioritize plant-based education and to help advertise these events. The Green Monday resolution was adopted in 2019 and has been manifested as a handful of library programs on the hows and whys of plant-based eating over the years. Starting this year, plant-based advocates and the library are presenting consistent monthly programs. We had a Zoom cooking demo this month with an outstanding attendance of 113 participants. People are very interested in this topic and they want more. In order for these programs to continue, we will need town support. So why should plant-based education be a priority? 1, a small amount of money would go a long way. Mountain View conducted a consumption-based greenhouse gas emissions inventory and found that funding plant-based education would give the biggest bang for the buck in addressing climate change. Mountain View allocated $30,000 for plant-based education. We are not even asking for nearly that amount. Just a small amount would go a long way in making a big impact. 2, residents have asked the town for plant-based education. During the general plan process, the town received hundreds of emails from residents of Los Gatos asking for plant-based education. In fact, there were more emails received about housing and plant-based education than any other issue on the general plan. There was also a petition with about 300 names of residents. People want to eat fewer animal products, but they don't always know what to eat instead. They want education. 3, plant-based education gets to the root of the problem. Most people who have spoken at council meetings are in favor of plant-based education. However, there have been some who have said that while plant-based eating is a good idea, they don't understand why the town should fund it when we have such serious problems as wildfires and flooding. This is exactly why we need to fund such programs. We need to get to the root of the problem. Of course, robust fire prevention and emergency services are essential, but these problems will only get worse if we don't do something to prevent them in the first place. Plant-based eating addresses so many environmental problems at the root. We want to thank you so much for your consideration and for all you do.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Nathan Vandegrift, and then I'm going to switch over to a few Zoom speakers who are sitting there. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a presentation too, if we could flip over to the visual support. Awesome, thank you. Good evening, council. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me. My name is Nate Vandegrift, and I live up Overlook Road with my wife, Bobby, and our 3 young children. On January 10th at 2:06 a.m., 2 weeks ago today, my family and I were woken up by the terrifying sound of falling trees outside of our house, followed by car alarms. We scrambled to find the flashlights because the power were out, and upon investigation, we found 2 150-foot tall eucalyptus trees on top of our vehicles. The top of the trees landed on the driveways of 18201 Overlook and 18151 Overlook, as shown in the images. The destruction of the trees was phenomenal. In the path was a power pole that was broken off halfway up, as you can see in the left image, and power lines were scattered on the ground. In the tree's path was the power line and 2 vehicles that were completely destroyed, and a third sustained massive damage, totaling $230,000 in damage. The impact of the tree was so impressive that it broke the power line and a rock wall and damaged the sewer in its path. It plunged a foot into the soil beneath. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. I'm up here today representing all of the concerned citizens on Overlook Road who are scared for their safety and the safety of their young children. The fact that these trees did not cause house damage or take human lives was simply luck. We were lucky that the trees fell uphill at a 15-degree angle up the street, and the tops are the only ones that made damage, as just a few feet away, children were sleeping. If those trees had fallen perpendicular to the street, lives would have been lost. We were lucky that the trees fell at 2 a.m. when nobody was in the vehicles. We were lucky that the trees only wiped out power, internet, and cable for 5 days. We were lucky that the power lines did not create a fire or electrocute someone as they hung 4 feet above the ground across the driveways. We were completely lucky. Tonight, I heard that safety is the town's #1 strategic initiative. We now know of an imminent safety risk to our community. The exposure of the uprooted shallow roots, as you can see in these images, shows the integrity of the root structure is just not sustained for these 150-foot trees. And now the ones that have fallen, even the ones nearby, don't have the roots intermingled to help support each other. The cost alone of this one incident was estimated at $400,000. Preventative costs of removing trees, however, is about $10,000 per tree, costing only $180,000. We need to join other cities like Los Altos in a eucalyptus removal and ban due to the fire and falling risks that their council stated was a threat to their residents. This is an emergency issue. We need to treat the removal of these trees as emergency safety priority. The eucalyptus trees were planted by humans 100 years ago, and now humans must take away this risk. As stated tonight, the safety of our town's residents is number one. Eucalyptus trees are a hazard, and they're not native to California. We cannot accept the risk that these trees create, and there's nothing that outweighs human life. I ask that the town council please prioritize the eucalyptus ban and the removal of the trees. To not take action now would be ignorant and dangerous. We have been warned, and now is the time to take action. Thank you for your time in prioritizing this issue.
Thank you. Okay, I am now going to switch over to Zoom. We have a few participants here, which came off my screen. So if we can unmute Maureen Kapanjavi, who will be followed by Sketch O. Ms. Javi, you should be able to unmute yourself and speak to us.
Hi there.
Thank
Good
you.
evening, Mayor Risto, Vice Mayor Badami, Council members Hudis, Moore, Rennie, and staff. My name is Maureen Kapanjavi. I'm a long-term town resident and former director of NUMU, New Museum Los Gatos. I'm a member of the NUMU board, and I'm the chair of the Los Gatos Arts and Culture Commission. This month, I began my 10th year as an arts commissioner. And surprise, I'm here to advocate for the arts and arts organizations as important critical strategic partners under the banner of community vitality. Specifically, and under the umbrella discussion of setting strategic priorities, I'd like to shine a light on the possibility that the town will begin charging NUMU $25,000 a year in rent, beginning the new fiscal year, thus undermining a successful 3-year rent-free trial run in which NUMU met and exceeded performance goals and success markers enumerated in the lease agreement. And remarkably, this all took place during the pandemic. Given NUMU's stellar performance as a key plaza partner, I encourage the council to end rent obligation and embrace NUMU as an extension of the town, providing unique services. This, by the way, is the standard practice between towns and museums throughout the country, and certainly throughout our state and in our region. So tonight I'm keeping my remarks brief, not repeating what's already been expressed through letters and messages in support of NUMU that fill your briefing deck. I'm here to say, please do the right thing. Remove the rent roadblock once and for all, and let NUMU get on with its business of putting the town of Los Gatos on the maps, local, regional, national, and international. When you do, I guarantee that in 1, 5, 10, 20 years from now and beyond, you and your council colleagues and staff will be congratulating yourselves, knowing that without a doubt, you set the course of success for NUMU and let this gem in the plaza move forward with what it does best: contributes, inspires, engages, challenges, shepherds, innovates, elevates, makes better, lifts up, gives voice, advocates, beautifies, shelters, partners, supports, and includes. And this is the short list. Thank you all for your service to our community, and thank you for earnestly and respectfully listening to my 2 cents. And I fully support the concerns and remedies proposed by the folks advocating on behalf of unhoused people in our community. We can certainly do more.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Sketch O, who will be followed by Kelly Massini. Very small font. Okay, Sketch, you may unmute yourself.
Am I on? I think I am. Hi, my name is Sketch Opie. I am a member of the Lived Experience Advisory Committee with West Valley Community Services, as well as the Lived Experience Advisory Board of Silicon Valley. I'm also on the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council, and I'm also on the Housing and Community Development Commission for the City of San Jose. But something about me is also I was homeless in Los Gatos. A lot of people there may know my uncle, who still currently is, Marcos Salazar. My maiden name is Salazar. I'm here because the town of Los Gatos, you know, the current way that the strategies are listed, it says quality of life, right? And diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. And when homelessness isn't a part of the strategy, that's not being very inclusive or equitable for the diversity that is part of Los Gatos, whether it wants to be addressed or not, or hushed to the side or not. When I was homeless there, my family, the Salazars, were all in Los Gatos. They had the ranch right past the reservoir that's all grown over now, the wrought iron fence. And I grew up in that town. And when I was homeless there, is the only time I felt at home. You know, I have been blessed to be housed since 2017, and I've been able to be an advocate and get on a city commission and do all of these things because I'm passionate at the fact that homeless people have value. They're human beings as well. And the thing is with the town of Los Gatos, the community there, the demographic of unhoused individuals is so small, it's so minute to the bigger spectrum of Santa Clara County that it could easily be abolished. He served our country. And he's out there right now, you know, in the mountains, and it's freezing. You know, these people out there, the weather inclement is even worse than it is here in town. And I really just want to strongly urge that homelessness be able to reach the strategy list, especially for an area that deals with human life, human value, as well as the fact that it could easily be abolished in Los Gatos. The community is so small. And providing a shelter, especially right now during this cold weather implementation warnings, is imperative because housing is healthcare, right? And these are lives we're talking about. I can't tell you how many times when I was homeless that people died just from hypothermia, and I would see them getting picked up by the coroner. And that's unacceptable. This town I love, it's true to my heart. I hope to be back one day to my hometown that I grew up in. But in the meantime, I'm gonna do everything I can to help be a voice for those that can't be heard. Thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker, okay, let's see, is Kelly Massini, who will be followed by Tom Picro.
Hi, my name is Kelly Massini. I've been a Los Gatos Bellwood area resident for 21 years. I would just like to reiterate the need for traffic calming, safe exits out of our neighborhood, and pedestrian safety on the Blossom Hill corridor specifically between Lee and Harwood, but also there's a section between Union and Lee that's very unsafe. Our neighborhood deserves safe exits out of the area, and our students deserve safe passage from schools. I would like to add a suggestion. I spoke a couple weeks ago at last week at the town council meeting. I'd like to add one more suggestion for a safety tip, and that is the section of Blossom Hill Road that goes from Union to Lee. It goes from 1 lane to 2, and if you just edited that and made the expansion to 2 lanes past West Hill, that would significantly improve the safety of turning left out of West Hill. The rest of Los Gatos roads look great. They're well marked. There's tons of bike lanes. And I would just like to encourage the town to include our section of Los Gatos in those wonderful safety improvements that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Picro is next, will be followed by James Rojas.
Good evening, and thank you, Council, for the work you do for our town. I'm Tom Picro. I'm a senior here, and I'm chair of the Senior Services Committee. but I'm speaking for myself today in support of the ongoing strategic priority of a community where older adults thrive and the senior roadmap that's being developed. I support the statements by Maureen Heath and Dick Conrad on the senior programs. And I would like to point out that the roadmap, which is being developed in this 1-3-10 year vision, is important as a priority area because at current growth, residents at 55 and older, I project, will be 1/3 of the town's population by the end of the 10-year vision considered in the senior services roadmap. Truly, it's worthwhile maintaining our work on an age-friendly town for everyone, and that includes senior services. Another reason to consider is that focus on the senior roadmap has been, as a town priority over the past year, has been very effective in marshaling the support of your community. In fact, greatly more than 1,000 hours have been contributed of volunteer time have been to the roadmap planning by community members. The town should maintain this momentum as it moves from planning to action on the roadmap over this next year. And finally, I'd like to note that the communication and engagement work of the many people involved in the roadmap effort, and I've really been impressed by all the work of people involved, has been essential in moving towards a community where older adults thrive. And I encourage the town to continue this momentum. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So our speaker next is James Rojas, who will be followed by Jessica Matthew.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Jaime Rojas. I want to speak to priority item number 13 regarding to tobacco retail ordinance. I currently represent the National Association of Tobacco Outlets, and I'm here tonight on behalf of local retailers in regards to the most recent statewide flavor ban that was passed in the November ballot. We're requesting the city to ask the state public health department for more finance and dollars in regards to help assisting in enforcing this flavor ban. We're unfortunately seeing many illegal sales happening because of state ban and hurting local businesses. In addition to that, we're also asking the city in regards to impacts of new products launched by many companies, including RJ Reynolds. RJ Reynolds has communicated to his customers about these new products are in fact non-flavored products, but also have non-characterizing flavor of tobacco products. So we're asking that the city, as well as local jurisdictions, request from the state, more direction on the state flavor ban, as well as more money for enforcement and education outreach. Thank you for consideration.
Thank you, Jaime. I'm sorry I couldn't read your name properly. Our next speaker is Jessica Matthew, who will be followed by Ali Miano, and then we'll head back to in person.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Okay, great. Hi, my name is Jessica Matthew. I am the chapter co-chair of the Silicon Valley Democratic Socialists of America, and I'm a resident of Los Gatos. I'll be speaking in support of adding more explicit language to the strategic priorities regarding affordable housing and plans to help people who are houseless. First, just like every other city and town in the Bay Area, we need to be doing more to ensure that the people who live here can continue to afford to live here and not to become displaced. This is becoming a huge problem for our senior citizens, especially, with reports of many being displaced as they age. Displacement leads to people being forced to move away, but unfortunately, there are many who become unhoused as well. And homeless people are dying on our city streets locally. Almost 250 last year alone, which surpassed previous records. These deaths are entirely preventable. During the recent storm alone, 5 people died in one day who were houseless. Without shelter from the elements and with raging floods, our most vulnerable residents are even more at risk. What's worse is this isn't a once-in-a-lifetime storm that we just experienced. The climate crisis is going to continue to exacerbate these storms, and we need to be able to help out people who are not only currently houseless, but those who will unfortunately, inevitably, become houseless as a result of unmitigated climate change. I see that safety is one of the top priorities of our town council currently, and I just want to remind everyone that when we talk about safety, we need to be sure that we are including the safety of all people, including perhaps the most vulnerable among us, people without homes. And when we look to the future of this town, I hope that we will consider these two priorities, building more affordable housing and taking care of homeless people, as of the utmost importance. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last Zoom speaker for now is Ali Miano.
Thank you for taking my comment. Although I'm a member of the town's Complete Street and Transportation Commission, my comments tonight may not reflect those of my fellow commissioners. And therefore, I'm speaking to you as a longtime resident and a member of the Los Gatos Anti-Racism Coalition. And as such, I urge you to include affordable housing and improved public transportation among your priorities. So I'll start with transportation. I don't have to tell you that it's become increasingly difficult to get around town and to town with only one bus and tons of beach traffic on sunny weekends. We need out-of-the-box, multifaceted solutions so that once again, people can get back to shopping and dining and supporting local businesses still struggling from the pandemic. The town could sponsor free VTA passes for Los Gatos workers, youth, and others. It could lobby VTA to provide us with more convenient transportation options and ultimately the light rail. It could urge Santa Cruz's Highway 17 Express to make at least one stop in Los Gatos on Saturdays to pick up beachgoers. If we don't act now, the future is only going to get bleaker on this front. And so we simply must make transportation a priority. And then there's our lack of affordable housing, as many others have suggested tonight. This also contributes to the traffic log jams. I've met restaurant workers who commute here from Los Baños. And, with these long distance driving, traffic, et cetera, also comes more pollution. And I want to talk about one other hidden cost of no affordable housing, and that would be my friend and neighbor, Julie. Julie has lived and worked in town for several decades. She's the kind of person, she'll walk your dog, she'll visit an elderly neighbor just to cheer them up. She'll pick up trash in the park when it's not even trash pickup day. But recently, when her landlord passed away, Julie's building was sold, and so now she has to move away. So this is a real person to back up the statistics you've heard tonight. And after seeing so many people I grew up with leave town, this becomes deeply discouraging. When Los Gatos becomes so unaffordable that neighbors like Julie can't live here anymore, who's left? Just a bunch of us folks who sit in our houses all day behind our computers? Please make Los Gatos affordable for wonderful people like Julie and so many others, including the homeless people that some of the previous speakers have talked about. These are people who've contributed to society, people who give this town character that money just can't buy. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miano. So now we're going back to in person, right here, who's in the chambers. And our next speaker will be Melissa Torin, who will be followed by Zachary Benitez. Okay, Zachary Benitez will be after Melissa.
Okie dokie. And I have to bring this down. Hi, everybody. Thank you. We are I'm the executive director of KCAT. I don't know if you said that, KCAT TV and radio. We are very excited that KCAT and the Producers Network is part of your strategic priorities. I found a bullet point right where we fit in. Number 2, where seniors thrive. So I'm very excited that we're on the list. Our partnership council members, senior commissioners, and KCAT has now successfully launched and cemented the Producers Network pilot program into a vital community resource where older adults thrive. You, all of you, had the vision to recognize that this demographic of adults, 55 plus, are looking for more than the same old activities, and that a TV and radio station could offer them a unique program, something creative, something innovative, and exciting that will embrace all they have to offer our community. Brand new to senior services, the space of senior services, we understood your vision and the need to provide a joie de vivre lifestyle that will cater to their passion for learning while embarking on new adventures. So we did it, all of us. You by providing half of the seed money to incubate this pilot, and KCAT for implementing and rolling out an awesome program in only 1 year. Mission accomplished. And don't let me boast and brag about the whole program. Our early stage stats and metrics speak for themselves. 2 examples. We have exceeded our goal by approximately 315% with 125 active participants. 95 out of 125 producers are new to local senior programs. I could go. We have a few more metrics, but I'll just go on. We're so proud, and you should be over the moon thrilled that this Start from Scratch pilot has filled a void in the town and fits in beautifully with the senior roadmap. So I know we're not supposed to ask for money, but let's finish what we started together. Based on our successful pilot program, plus the strong recommendation from the senior commissioners, we are confident that the town council will support that KCAT receives our original request of $100,000 to fulfill our original proposal and plan. And guess what? We will not be coming back to the town for additional funding. We had planned all along to become a sustainable program, and we know that because we will all be playing bingo together. Okay? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, Zachary Benitez, who will be followed by Joni Russell.
This is probably fine. Hello, my name is Zachary Benitez, Los Gatos High School student and technical director at KCAT TV 15, and I'm here to talk to you about the Producers Network. So, as a TV producer and editor myself, I often find myself teaching classes to the producers, helping them unlock their inner talent. Just sitting down and having a conversation with one of our producers is truly a special experience. Each of them have fascinating and enlightening stories that, when coupled with a little bit of technical expertise, can be shared with the world. And that's part of what makes the Producers Network so special. Storytelling and creative expression is one of the most powerful things in our society. It shows respect and honor. Not only does our program engage seniors, it also engages the youth. Many youth, like myself, are constantly working with the producers, hearing inspiring stories while helping them from a technological standpoint. Wise, creative souls combined with youthful, technologically advanced minds is a magical combination. Every producer's technical passions are assessed, and we help them start a show or provide them with a technical position that allows them to express their creativity. While the producers learn from me, I also learn a lot from them. The community that the Producers Network has fostered is truly inspiring. Just watching a group of previous strangers come together with the goal of exploring creativity and trying something new has been so powerful. Every producer walks in the door with a smile on their face, ready to learn something. When prompted with the opportunity to try some of our most complicated gear, the producers take that challenge in stride and approach every task with curiosity. Without further funding, this special community, helping creative spirits thrive, will come to an end. Not only are we providing a space for like-minded individuals to come together, we are also providing them with the unique, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and experience. Each producer has access to an elite arsenal of TV gear, from cameras with large touchscreens to camera kits tailored towards ease of use. Each producer can learn the gear while still capturing fantastic content. The program truly allows our producers to embark on a journey never thought to be possible. Watching the smiles on the producers' faces when they feel assisted by our future generation is truly heartwarming. I'm pretty certain that there aren't many other TV stations in our nation that provide such a special opportunity. So, without further funding, this unique opportunity will come to an end. The Producers Network is growing each and every day. It would be tragic to watch this engaging and loved program meet its end.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Joni Russell, who will be followed by Jim Foley.
Good evening. My name is Joni Russell. I've been a Los Gatos resident for 43 years and was working in Los Gatos elementary schools as a speech and language pathologist for 7 years. And the last year, I became the project manager for the Producers Network. So for the last year, I've been working to create a connected community of 55 plus post-retirement volunteers who are empowered to share their voices, perspectives, skill sets, expertise, passion, creativity, positivity, and the love of community via TV, film, and radio broadcast. And I'm so proud that we've developed and nurtured a network of 125 volunteers, seniors in our own community, my peers. I want to take a moment to share a story that was so meaningful to me. One of our producers, Ruth Litwin, came to us and asked if we would film her conducting an in-depth interview with a very special 98-year-old man, Saul Dreyer. Saul survived the concentration camps and formed a band of Holocaust survivors to help connect and heal through the power of music. In our very own KCAT studio, the most amazing interview happened with our producer, Ruth, expertly guiding the questions, and Saul telling us of his journey from Schindler's Factory to Florida and around the world playing instruments with his band. You can read more about it as our feature story in our fall-winter edition of our e-zine, and none of us working in the studio that day or listening to this interview on KCAT Channel 15 will ever forget it. This is one of the countless stories of why a program like this is so vital to our community. Not just the 125 volunteers who are learning new skills and helping tell impactful stories, but everyone in the community watching and listening. And KCAT is the connector and the community treasure that we are. Our seniors deserve to tell their stories. The community deserves to hear them. And KCAT is here to ensure that that happens. I urge the town to fund the Producers Network. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Our next speaker is Jim Foley, who will be followed by Sarah Chafin.
Honorable Mayor and Town Council, Jim Foley, President of the Board of Directors of Los Gatos Chamber of Commerce. I guess it's been a few minutes since I've been in front of you in person because I'm missing the podium here, which I usually like to lean on. But anyway, you're in receipt of our letter that we had provided, I think, on January 12th, identifying some of the key priorities that the Chamber of Commerce is looking to accomplish. We're very pleased to see that a lot of those priorities are sort of aligned with what's in the staff report. I don't want to go into it all. We've got a lot of people here tonight. But just wanted to get in front of you and say that we're looking forward to collaborating on that. We want to make sure that the Chamber is looked at as a resource. The first three priorities, getting through the general plan, addressing budget concerns, and permit streamlining are things that we feel the town is really well equipped to take the lead on, and we're happy to continue to have conversations and see if there's ways that we can help further those. The other two priorities were for destination marketing and continuing the parking program, which we think has been, at least the initial phases, has been a big success and been very beneficial to the business community. Those two priorities are things that we might be able to be a bigger resource for. But in any event, we're looking forward to meeting with all of you individually and continuing to meet with the mayor and the staff and find out how we can get some of these things that have been priorities for a number of years now out of the way. Because I think if we do that, a lot of the other things that we're hearing tonight, they can get more attention. Something that's become very clear is there's a big concern about the homelessness, and that was an additional priority that we had identified. The business community a lot of times is on the front lines, just geographically with what's happening with homeless in our town. So we encourage you to pay attention to that and come to some kind of a resolution. I don't think there's going to be a lot of questions, but we're here to answer any if you have them. And that's it.
Thank you. I haven't had questions for our speakers yet. I think we'll be doing a lot of discussion. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, our next speaker is Sarah Chafin, followed by Susan Felton.
A little shorter, so, oops, I think I knocked this out. Can you hear me? Yeah. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and Council. I appreciate the fact that you have included affordable housing in the strategic plan and also the housing at 20 Dittos Lane. I will not, there's been so much discussion tonight for the need for affordable housing within the town. And I just wanted to share that we actually started leasing up the affordable teacher and school employee housing this month. And our first resident was actually a teacher who was housing insecure. So this type of homelessness and housing insecure is really reaching the town at all economic levels. The first teacher that moved in was actually living in the mountains in a unit without a kitchen. So because rents have become so high in the area, so I just wanted to make sure that the council would still continue to make affordable housing a priority. And I also feel the Dittos Lane project is a pilot program, and I think we can use it as a case study of how we can get housing done and what areas maybe we can improve in our below market housing plan. Finally, I noticed on your agenda, there's some properties. I think there's one in the downtown area, and there's also one on Pine Avenue. And I'd like to let you know that since the teacher housing has been so successful, that would be a great opportunity to replicate it at one of those locations. So I'd like to have the opportunity to have a future chat with council about this. And so thank you very much. And I just wanted to finally thank Arn Andrews. I know so many people have thanked him, but he's really led the way on, the teacher and school employee housing pilot program, and he's going to be missed. So thank you.
Thank you. So our next speaker is Susan Felton, who will be followed by Umar Elahi.
First of all, thank you for having me on behalf of KCAT, and thank KCAT for letting me come. I am not a longtime resident of this city. I moved here just about a year and a half ago from Midtown Manhattan. And actually, I was kicking and screaming on the plane. They had to seduce me, actually, on the plane, because my husband has a whole bunch of grandchildren that live around here, and he said, we're going. And it turned out that my job that I'd had for about 20 years, working with the same gentleman as president of a hospital in New York, he was leaving. So my husband said to me, well, you have no excuse now, we're going to California. So our children live about a half an hour north of here, and the setting is perfect. We discovered Los Gatos once on a shopping trip for light fixtures about 10 years ago, because somebody said there was a great store in Los Gatos, and I said to my husband, Los Gatos, where is that? So we came, and one of the things that worried me was, it's fine to have grandchildren here, but what the hell am I going to do all day? And I saw an ad in the paper for KCAT, and that they were starting this program called The Producers. And I thought, well, I can do that, I think. So I went down and I fell in love with the two women who run The Producers. And they are two women with boundless energy, and two women who don't know the word, we can't do it. If anybody came to the Oktoberfest last year, it blew me away. I thought it was going to be some little, some little country town was doing this Oktoberfest. There were 700 people there. So, and then one of the ladies, Joni and Melissa, said, they met me, and they said, why don't you come to one of our events? So I came to an event, and it was a whole bunch of elderly people, but very sharp elderly people, I have to say, and with a lot of experience. And I thought to myself, wow, this is a lot better than going to an assisted living, which is where I thought we were going to be moving to. And I thought, well, this is okay. They serve cookies and they do all this stuff, and it's very cozy and nice. And I met all these wonderful people, just so wonderful. And Joni, is starting The Producers, as the head of The Producers, said to me, we're going to give you a show because you're funny. And I said, you're going to give me a show? I thought it was really a joke. I didn't think anything would happen. And if you go to KCAT right now and you go and look for Sue on the street, you'll find me there. And I'll be schmoozing all over the place and asking people questions and whatever. While I was sitting here, I was thinking about...
Thank you. You get one sentence.
One sentence. While I was thinking about it, my husband and I have been involved with the elderly in hospitals for years.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And welcome to Los Gatos. Okay. Umar Elahi, and then our next speaker will be Joseph Enns. And that is the last card I have, so I'm assuming everybody's done speaking after this.
Good evening. My name is Umar Elahi. I have lived in Los Gatos for 30 years and have worked as a personal trainer and a chiropractor for a combined 20 years in this community. I am a KCAP board member here to share a very special experience I recently had on the Producers Network show. As a board member, it was an honor to participate in a show about improving balance. The idea for the show came about after one of the producers suffered severe injuries from a fall, which inspired her to do a show to help others. My business partner and I were honored to be guests on their show and left feeling a deep connection and importance after listening to our hosts share their recent scare from falling and their concerns about what they could do to not get hurt again. We felt privileged to be able to sit there, look them in the eye, listen to them, and help them and so many others that can now watch the show and learn how to improve their balance. The Producers Network program allows this demographic to thrive by catering to their talents and volunteerism while building a relationship with their peers. The program meets all the town's priorities to allow seniors to thrive. I thank you for your strong considerations to allocating funds to help the Producers Network achieve sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last speaker will be Joseph Enns.
So I'm not homeless. I know all the homeless, the veterans that have to be taken care of. That guy was back there, the guy that was in the tree. I almost cried during all that veteran stuff. I'm not a homeless veteran. I've been here most of the time with the homeless people. And I want to thank Mariko Sayak. I'm working with her and the reuniting of the ecosystem with the creek, Friends of the Los Gatos Creek. And I want to thank our Jamie over there, our police chief. I think that's Jamie, isn't it? Okay, yeah, she's great. And we saved money by getting rid of Decina. Okay, so I'm deeply involved with a lot of things there. I'm working with the church, which is not two churches combined. It's my church, the Episcopal Church, and that's Reverend Father Ricardo Avila. So we're together. I'm back there. I had political problems with Joe Greiner, but she's done a lot of great things. She went to Stanford. I went to Cal. That's supposed to be funny, but it's not. So we're all getting... I don't want to get into my comment yet. What do I got? 150? Okay. Those are the issues I'm concerned with. And the emergency, I want to speak up about the emergency preparedness, whatever it is. Okay, so I'm going to be joining, and I'm trying to get some homeless people to get a life. and join up because they're veterans, and they're credible if they quit being homeless. It all wraps together for me, what I see coming back here. And I have a VA housing I can't go to because there's too much crime and meth and everything. So I leave here, not doing anything. I get there and everybody's there. I'm Eastie Village. Major problems. I'm paying 3/4. So I'm paying 3/4 of virtually nothing to live there, and I can't even be there. So they're going to figure it out. I put in a grand jury complaint form. It doesn't matter. So that is screwed up, but it relates to the housing, lack of housing for homeless, and it's going on everywhere. It's not just here. It's going on everywhere. So I think Los Gatos should be the cutting edge on homelessness. I'm working madly with the church to get the right-wing Trump thing versus, I'll just put it out there, in the Democratic liberal thing, because that's what Marika spoke. We're getting together, and then there's Zoom, and we never got it together again. So Mariko's still on Facebook at Mariko for Los Gatos. So that's all I have to say. I got 8 seconds. I'm going to pass to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service. So I have no more speaker cards, and I have no hands up on Zoom. So at this point, I'm going to close the public comment. And before we move to council discussion, how about if we take a 10-minute break? For those of you who are here, you are welcome to remain. It's so much nicer to have people in chambers. But if you'd like to take the 10 minutes to go home and watch this on KCAT, that would also, I won't take it personally. All right, we'll be back then at 8:55. Is my mic, oh, okay, my mic is working now. Okay, if people could either find a seat or move through and out of the hallway so we can continue with the meeting. Don't you have a mic? Okay. All right. So we're going to bring the meeting back to order, and I just want to head into the next part by saying that, you know, I think a lot of us noticed there was really great input and very positive. We have a lot of good things happening with our strategic priorities, and all of the input was very positive about things that we can continue to do for our community. So I appreciate that. So for this next step, I think we'll go into we are going to do the ordinances, and then we'll talk about the strategic priorities. And at that point, if we have questions for staff or we want to have some discussion about some of the things we've heard, we'll defer it till then, if that's okay with everybody. I think we should do the ordinances first. Okay, so I'll turn that over to our town attorney.
Good evening, council members. So what I will do, if this works for the council, is I will talk through the list of ordinances and where they're placed in order of priority. And perhaps after the description of each ordinance, the council could indicate by consensus whether they agree with where that ordinance was placed in the order of priority.
Could we go through the whole list?
Yes.
And then, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and then we'll go back and look at the order?
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
So at the top of the list is an ordinance to amend the town's concealed carry weapons ordinance. And this suggestion is based on a recent Supreme Court case, U.S. Supreme Court case, holding that ordinances can no longer include good cause as an element of consideration for a concealed carry permit. So the town needs to update its ordinance. And as a partner to that ordinance, staff is interested in bringing forward an ordinance that prohibits firearms, including concealed carry weapons, in sensitive places. And a number of Santa Clara County jurisdictions are considering this. And the locations that are usually included are public meeting spaces such as this, libraries, schools, and parks. The next item on the list is zoning code amendments. The state law requires that zoning requirements be vertically consistent, meaning that once we have a new housing element, all of the zoning codes will need to be consistent with that housing element. And so we're proposing to put that fairly high on the list at number 2. The next item is an update to the town's accessory dwelling unit ordinance. State law has changed a number of times since the town originally adopted its accessory dwelling unit ordinance, and so staff proposes to update it to conform with state law. In the interim, the town is still required to follow state law. It's just that it's confusing to have a local ordinance that conflicts with some of the state law provisions. And next on the list is the density bonus ordinance, and the town is in the same position with regard to the density bonus ordinance. State law has been amended a number of times since the town originally adopted its density bonus ordinance. And while we're required to comply with state law, we do think it's a good idea to bring our local ordinance into conformity with state law. The next item is an ordinance to amend our lot merger provisions. What we have on the books currently conflicts with the State Subdivision Map Act, and so staff is proposing an update to bring it into conformity, and that will be coming to the council at its February 7th meeting for consideration. And next on the list is the town sign ordinance. Law has evolved in the area of sign regulations, and so I'm recommending that we remove the content-based regulations that are currently in the town's ordinance, and then also clarifying the ordinance provisions with regard to where temporary signage can be placed. And then next on the list, this is probably more of a nice to have than a mandate. It would be nice to update the town's subdivision ordinance because it is confusing in a few respects. And then next on the list is an e-bike ordinance. While there are vehicle code provisions that address e-bikes, they're limited to requirements like an age limit and that people need to wear a helmet. And then it provides that people can ride e-bikes in the bike lane if permitted by local ordinance. And so there are a few issues that are remaining for local jurisdictions to figure out with regard to e-bikes. Next on the list is a wireless facilities ordinance. And the idea behind this is to update the town's provisions on where telecommunications facilities can be placed. And the goal would be to encourage the placement of those facilities in public right-of-way rather than on private property. And then similar to the ADU and the density bonus ordinance, the town eventually needs to bring its water efficient landscape ordinance into compliance with state law. In the meantime, we're still governed by state law, so that's more of a cleanup action. Next, the staff is proposing that we update the parking space requirements. Our parking space requirements haven't been looked at in quite a while and could use an update. Also, staff is proposing amendments to the noise ordinance. It was originally adopted in 1991, and there's a few changes that staff thinks would be beneficial. Next is the town's tobacco retailer ordinance. The town partners with the county on a tobacco retailer ordinance that regulates the retail of tobacco in town. The county has recently changed some of its requirements, and since the county is a partner for the town on this program, we need to amend the town ordinance to get into conformance with the county. And then last on the list is proposed updates to the town's public nuisance ordinance. We do have a lot of helpful provisions, but we're thinking that it would be beneficial to have a more comprehensive public nuisance ordinance where all the provisions are found in the same place. And that ends the list.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple questions to lead off, and then, so some of these are making us consistent with state law. So I agree that those should be a high priority because I hate to see our residents be confused when they read one of our ordinances and we realize that state law holds true and it's confusing. So I think that's important. I was curious about, so these seem to be in order of importance, but there's one here that is coming to the council in February. Sorry. Oh, the lot merger adjustment ordinance. So why is that not number one? I realize you're not going to finish number one and then do number two, but it sounds like number 5 will be knocked off pretty quickly.
It'll be knocked, assuming the council approves of the draft, but that is lower on the list because I don't think it's urgent. I think it's beneficial, and it was an easy fix. And so it was easy to take care of it.
Okay, and then one other question I have is for some of these, like the density bonus ordinance and the parking requirements, will those go to the planning commission first?
Yes.
Okay, so those are scheduled out. And then my last question is, does this look like a list that can actually be accomplished in a year, or is this just an ongoing list? And do you have an estimate for what you think is possible to finish this year?
This is a guesstimate, but I would say probably 8 would be reasonable.
Okay, thank you. That's all from me. Councilmember Rennie had his hand up, and then Vice Mayor Badami.
So generally, the order of the list looks okay to me, except I'm not so sure about 13, the tobacco retailer ordinance. I really question why you put it that far down when the description says we need to amend our ordinance in order for the county to be able to continue enforcement in the town. With it this far in the list, it might not even get done this year, so I'm wondering, well, does that mean we're not even enforcing it this year? If it's really preventing any enforcement, shouldn't it be moved up the list?
Yeah, it's possible I put it there because we're so close to finalizing the draft ordinance. I've been working with the county on the edits, and we're honestly just a few words from it being ready to come to the council. So even though it's number 13, it'll probably come to the council within the next 2 months.
Okay, but we could move it up the list just to be sure.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Vice Mayor Badami.
Thank you. I'm comfortable with the order of the list as recommended by the town attorney. But if she does have time this year, and maybe we could do it next year, I really like the idea of adding a bingo ordinance as number 15. I think that would be fun and add to our community vitality. And it seems like it might be fairly easy since it was offered up to have the template that Saratoga has as offered up by Tyler Taylor.
Thank you. That was actually on my list too. I would also be interested if we have consensus from the council. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I love the bingo ordinance. I think that's a great idea. So the only one that I might want to move up is number 8, the e-bike ordinance. It's hard because some of these are, obviously state requirements. I think those first 4 probably have to stay in the first 4 because those are all, getting in compliance with state law. But the e-bike ordinance feels like one of the only ones here, along with maybe like the CCW, that is pressing because of safety concerns. And so I think that, and I know the Youth Commission has been working hard on this, and so that's one I would personally be interested in moving up, but I'd be curious to hear what my colleagues say.
I was going to have a question about the e-bike ordinance. Is that kind of dependent on the Youth Commission's work on this? If you're working with the Youth Commission, do they have a goal with you to complete it before the end of this term, or will it be an ongoing priority for the Youth Commission when they refresh in September?
I can touch base with the chief. I know that the Youth Commission is currently working with a school resource officer, and so then the proposal will come to me, to formalize it, and so I can touch base to find out what the timing is of that.
Thank you. Any other, Chief, yes, please.
Just to add to what the town attorney was mentioning, it is an active project and priority with the Youth Commission. It's more of a robust project because it doesn't just involve the ordinance. There's also some educational efforts that are in play there, with our next meeting being next week. So it is a very active project with hopes of completing it by end of their term this year in June. If not, then it would be revisited again immediately in September when they come back together.
Thank you. I would just editorialize. I agree that it's a safety issue. I think it's important. I also think it's important to get it right. And if it includes, I think the education portion is going to be very significant in this effort. And so that won't be as easy as just writing an ordinance. But we can talk about the location of where it is on the list.
Just one quick follow-up on that. I think one reason I might want to still move it up is because if we have this Youth Commission that's been working on it, the chair is going to change, and the Youth Commission often has a different priority project each year, and so I think this could be good to try to complete before June, at least in terms of the ordinance itself, and then going forward doing the education with the Youth Commission and the whole town.
Thank you. Councilmember Hudes.
Thank you. And I agree with the comment about potentially moving the e-bike up to coincide with the Youth Commission's work. That might be a good win. The one I wanted to just ask about was the number 1 concealed carry weapons ordinance. And these all look like mandates. This seems to be a Supreme Court mandate. But the last sentence about consider adoption of an ordinance prohibiting the carry of concealed weapons in sensitive places, such as public buildings and schools. I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm asking the question, would that put the town into kind of a vanguard position that might draw various advocacy groups and, or would we be following state law in regard to that aspect? Because we did have an experience here with weapons that may put Los Gatos kind of into the vanguard, and it consumed a huge amount of time when, in fact, if it's a mandate, it's a mandate.
The sensitive places ordinance is not a mandate. It's a trend in Santa Clara County, and so Sunnyvale has already adopted it. I think Mountain View is about to. And so it's definitely new. I don't know that I would say it would put us at the vanguard, but I would say it would put us in a group of cities that are among the first to do it. Glendale's was recently challenged and upheld, and so there's already been litigation in Southern California on this topic.
So I guess I'm fine with the overall priority ranking of these, with the exception of number 8, moving that up. But if we run into the situation on number 1, I think it might be better for us not to take the full weight of that issue if it's going to be resolved elsewhere. That one maybe just be sensitive to that last part.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we're pretty good with the order of these. We want to move 8 up. I'm not sure what moving 8 up means. Councilmember Rennie.
Yeah, I was going to suggest we move 8 up to 6. I'm kind of looking. Most of those are ones where our ordinance before it are ones where the ordinance doesn't match law, and so now it's confusing. It seems to be moving it in after 5 is the first place, after where we're no longer sort of removing confusion, but working on other things. Or, I don't know, that's not exactly right, but I was going to suggest moving 8 into the 6th position and moving everything down.
And then I have another question. Where do we put bingo? Or do we? We have 3 people that have expressed interest. Do we have consensus with our other council members? Councilmember Hudes.
Well, a comment about it. I think we have some research to do on that because it's not clear whether our existing bingo ordinance would allow us to go as far as Saratoga is going. I would be in favor of it being higher because it could generate some very significant revenue for our senior programs as well as for other programs that we know we're going to come up short on. So I would put that one with sort of an asterisk and say maybe get some more information on that one before we try to prioritize that tonight, would be my suggestion.
Yeah, I would almost view it like the cannabis ordinance where there's some research done and then we look to see if it makes sense to move forward in terms of where we stand. So does that sound like it's 15 or is it a different number, council members? Any input? I mean, I'm okay with just dropping it on 15 and seeing where that goes. Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, I would prefer to do the research and then reprioritize that one with the rest of them. 15 means it's not going to get done. And so I think it'd be better to do, I don't think it's anywhere near as complex as cannabis. And I think it's a matter of whether our existing ordinance would allow us to achieve the kind of benefits that some other communities are doing and get a quick report back on that. That was my sense.
Any input from the town attorney? Do you have any thoughts about what this would entail or what it would take to find out?
I don't think it would be very difficult. I mean, because we do have a bingo ordinance. The cash prize is capped at $250. And so I need to find out from the speaker, what would need to change about the town's ordinance. And I can probably also get that information by looking at Saratoga's.
Okay, then it sounds like we just want it on the list with some research being done. Okay, Councilmember Moore.
second what Councilmember Rennie said. I think moving the e-bike ordinance to 6 makes sense. And I guess question for the town attorney, do you want to have a bingo ordinance on this list for you to work on it, or is it fine for us to give you that direction and do the research?
Oh, the direction works well. And so I'll do the research and then provide that information to the council.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Badami.
I was going to try a motion unless Councilmember Rennie had some further comments.
If I could, I mean, it sounds like we're vacillating between having the bingo ordinance on the list or not. But this is when we make the list for the year, and even if we're going to do some work, I think before we make a further decision, I still think it should at least be on the list at number 15 or whatever. Otherwise, it's sort of implied that it's not really a priority, but in fact, if we're, as Mr. Hudis said, interested in helping getting some revenue for the senior programs, we might want to move it along a little quicker than maybe next year getting to it kind of thing. So I just feel like if it's not on the list, it's not really that much of a priority and probably won't happen this year. So at least put it on 15. And the attorney already now understands, do some work on it even though it's 15 and then come back and see if we want to move it up later. But I'd hate to not have it on the list.
Okay, and also to clarify, if something is further down on the list, but it just takes a quick move to get it done, it might get done before something above it that is waiting for feedback or input or waiting for a planning commission meeting or waiting for the next step. Is that
true.
correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so would you like to try a motion, Vice Mayor?
I'll try a motion. So I move to prioritize the order of the ordinances as recommended by the town attorney, moving up e-bikes to number 6, hopefully in coordination with the Youth Commission as needed. Consideration of the comments from Councilmember Hudis on item number 1, and adding a bingo ordinance as number 15 with research, and granting the town attorney discretion to move an item up if it's a quick fix that could be done quickly ahead of another item that might take longer.
Okay, Councilmember Moore.
I'll second the motion. I just want to add, I'm happy to vote yes on this and go forward with the motion as it stands, but I take a little bit of a different opinion on number 1. I think that the sensitive places is super, super important, especially with kind of what we've seen, and so because of those things, I am very interested in our ordinance, including the sensitive places piece, but I don't think we're there yet. We're not discussing that ordinance, just wanted to add that input.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I also agree that I don't think we should hold back on looking at the sensitive places. That's important to me as well, but that will move along at its pace as you get more information, as we see how other municipalities move forward and if there's any other challenges. Are there any other comments? Okay, then I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, passes unanimously. So now we move, that was nice and simple and linear. Now we'll be moving on to the strategic priorities. And I think, does our town manager did you have some kickoff comments for us at this part?
No, I think you heard from our public a lot of great comments, a lot of interest in some wonderful initiatives that are already underway. A lot of thoughtful commentary from our public. We do have the strategic priority graphics, so Mayor, at your discretion, we can start with safety if you would like, or go in whichever order of the main categories you would like.
Okay, and what I'm thinking is council members may have questions based on some of the testimony we heard, so it might be helpful to do it by category if everybody's okay with that, instead of asking questions in all the areas. Is that good? Head nods. Yes? Okay. So we'll start with safety, and under that we have community policing, emergency preparedness, CERT recruitment and training, EOC readiness and emergency plan development, fire protection with vegetation management, implementation of ad hoc wildfire mitigation plan. So those are our existing priorities and items. Councilmember Rennie.
Thank you, Mayor. So I do have a question here, and I know we're not making budget decisions tonight, but I can't think through priorities without thinking about how we're actually going to service the priorities. So in the back of my mind is always budget, and budget is dollars to grants or dollars spent by staff or dollars to pay staff to do something. So in my mind, everything starts back with dollars. So a dollars question. Mr. Stump had talked about more money for vegetation management, and we have $750,000. And I believe that we had to do a match on that. And so does that mean that we're already putting extra money in this year? I can't remember exactly.
Thank you for the question, Arn Andrews, Assistant Town Manager. So you did receive a federal earmark grant towards our roadside vegetation management program. That grant did come with a match. In speaking with the U.S. Forest Service, we said that we would provide our match in the last 2 years. And so currently the $700,000 is budgeted for this year, and then we said it would be approximately $375,000 each year to meet the one-to-one match on the $750,000. And so that is a commitment the council made to accept the grant, and it is a commitment that will be reflected in the forecast.
So does that mean we have to put money in this year?
No. So this year.
Next year.
Correct. So this year you have the $750,000 available to you. And then in the subsequent years, in order to meet your match, you have to complete that match within 2 years. And so we told the U.S. Forest Service it would be $375,000 per year.
Okay. Second related question. We have some residents concerned about the eucalyptus trees that we saw the presentation on. It occurred to me that taking care of these trees to some extent could be vegetation management, since they are a fire risk. They are almost the only way out of, for Overlook and Madrone up that way. So they're on an important egress route for, dead-end streets, basically. So the question would be, can we use vegetation management to address some of these eucalyptus trees? Assuming, of course, we would want to have them evaluated probably by our arborist to understand how much danger they really are and how much work, whether they need to come down all the way or whether they should just be trimmed. And we kind of done that kind of discussion with the high-low eucalyptuses, which may have been slightly different reason to keep them than these. But assuming we would like to move ahead, do you think we can use our vegetation management dollars on these eucalyptus?
So I'll start by answering the question as it relates to the federal earmark, and then Director Burnham can probably speak to the other areas of the CIP program that have vegetation dollars attached to it. So we provided the U.S. Forest Service with the consultant report that identified the 31 miles. I would have to go back and look at the report to see if Overlook is part of that identification. If it is, then the federal dollars would be eligible for that portion of town. But the grant was very specific to the 31 miles that were identified in the consultant report, and so they would have to be listed there for the federal earmark. And then I don't know if Director Berman wants to add any comments.
So if I could just follow up then, so we have to do matching dollars. Does our matching dollars then have to be in the same areas, or can it be other places in the town?
For the matching dollars, it has to be in the same areas.
Okay, thank you.
I have a follow-on question, which I don't think staff will be able to answer because it was pretty specific. I sent in today for a question later. But regarding the eucalyptus, I was curious because I saw a lot of really large trees come down in the storm. And I know eucalyptus have their own concerns for fire hazard, but I was wondering if we can get together the information, how many truly huge trees came down, because I saw redwoods, I saw oaks, I saw firs, I saw cedars, and I saw eucalyptus. And so as I take the risk of the eucalyptus very seriously, but I also want data to know whether that particular species was more predominant in causing risk of life and limb and property damage in this storm?
Nicole Burnham, Director of Parks and Public Works, and we definitely can get that data for you. I think your observation was supported by what we saw in the field as well, that in these recent storms, the trees that came down were of all variety, from native oaks to non-native eucalyptus and everything in between. So again, not to minimize the eucalyptus, but what happened in this storm was unique, but it's data we can definitely get you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, I had a comment related to that point, and I'm glad to see that this version of safety is a little different than the one here, because in the packet, vegetation management was under fire protection, and here it's like an equal bullet point to there. But the suggestion that I would make, maybe to accommodate the mayor's point as well, is that maybe it should be vegetation and hazardous tree management rather than specifying a particular tree, although I have to say I saw the eucalyptus up close, and it was as frightening as anything I've seen. And so as long as we're going to take that seriously, maybe just a little wording change to that one might accommodate the overall concern. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any other questions, comments, additions, deletions from safety? Councilmember Hudes.
So I believe that in safety, we need to have something to address the needs of our unhoused population. And, I think I don't know that we know exactly where to get started on this, but again, this is strategic priorities, and I would be in favor of an addition of that nature, address the needs of unhoused population.
Thank you. And I think I'll go to Councilmember Rennie. I was thinking of that under quality of life, but it can fall in either place, and talk about how we address that. Councilmember Rennie.
Yeah, I thought it could go under community vitality, but so I agree that that's something we want to work on. And again, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, how do we address this? And I know we've been thinking about potentially a study session to figure out how to work on this. So that would be something I think the mayor may already be thinking about. So I would support that idea. I also know that there seems to be some interest in the SSC Commission to work on the community health portion of it. So it might be an additional charter for that commission also. But I think the first step is this workshop that we've been discussing kind of behind the scenes, and then maybe enabling our commission to work on that.
Councilmember Moore.
Thank you. I have lots of thoughts and opinions on the homelessness issue, but I think I'll wait till we get to quality of life, because I think it fits a little bit better there. I don't know if it makes a huge difference for staff in that regard, but I do think it's more of a quality of life issue than a safety issue, while there are obviously safety concerns associated. My two comments on safety. So I just want to reaffirm our commitment to community policing. I think that's an incredibly important part of our police department, and I think is a kind of a backbone of our community, and something that our community really values. Kind of along that, I think that and again, this is something our police department is doing, but emphasizing our neighborhood watch programs, I think, is really important, especially with that lens of community policing. And then I would be curious to hear from staff about we heard a comment about the CERT recruitment and training, potentially adding infrastructure, which is obviously infrastructure, absolutely, to Councilmember Rennie's point, implies dollars. But I do think that's important, especially with our emergencies, but I know we're prioritizing here. So I would be curious to hear about what the kind of dollar amount could look like on infrastructure, or maybe we're not there yet, but I don't know.
I know that we've been looking at our budget and have been investing in our emergency operations center, not quite to the extent as the commenter who came forward this evening. I don't know if staff has any of that data available in terms of what we're already working on, but just want to assure the council that because it is a strategic priority. It's something that we have been investing in. We've been upgrading that technology. I think we've recognized ourselves the role of communication. And if I may just turn to the chief, who might have some specifics for you.
Thank you, Jamie Field, Chief of Police for Los Gatos Montesano Police Department. In regards to the recruitment and training, specifically to CERT, the Community Emergency Response Team, it's a partnership in terms of the recruitment efforts and the training, because in order to get CERTs trained, that goes through the Santa Clara County Fire Department. And they maintain a lot of the training. Once an individual is trained and within our jurisdiction, that information is then handed off to us. So we can get a lot of those data points to you. In terms of ongoing training, we are remaining focused on that throughout this year, and there is already discussions in process for the upcoming drill for existing CERT members within the community. And I'll turn it over to
I was just going to say real quick, the town manager mentioned enhancements to the AOC technology. Every year we receive what's referred to as EMPG grants. We've used the grants in the past to resupply laptop computers. The last EMPG grant we got, we did a display screen on the wall in the OC. This year it'll probably be focused on video conferencing. In addition, several of the Aries Races members have worked on creating a parallel internet, and those funds came out of the town manager's office that typically budgets about $10,000 for EOC technology enhancements. And then one other comment, in terms of safety, the way staff would perceive the unhoused from a safety perspective, it would probably fall under the broader umbrella of AFN, access and functional needs. Typically, in an emergency event, you have to also have plans of how you would mobilize and evacuate folks that are not necessarily as accessible as other residents that can just jump into their cars. And so we would view that more as a broader AFN issue than a separate unhoused issue under safety.
Okay, thank you. You're good? Okay, yes. Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, thank you. On the safety and the EOC, I believe that there's a leadership group in the communications, the emergency communications, working on something that's more of a budget request than would be at this level. But I did want to comment that I would maybe suggest under emergency preparedness that the bullet that starts with EOC actually start with communications, comma, EOC readiness, and because EOC is only one node in communications, and there are significant issues in some of the other communications nodes, and Emergency Operations Center doesn't encompass some of the other things that I think need to be done and could be done with some grants as well. So my suggestion to modify that description to make it a little bit broader.
Okay, and I'm going to ask, I'm writing notes all over the place, but I'm assuming staff is capturing these as we move through. It's almost too bad we can't mark up what's on the screen, but I think we're all working this way. Okay, any other comments on safety? I had under here, okay, I think we covered these. Oh, under the wildfire mitigation plan, there were some items called out by a speaker, but I think the fact that we have wildfire mitigation plan and ad hoc under that, the group could be reconvened and other issues can be moved forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's already part of your strategic priority, so we definitely want to acknowledge the existing ad hoc plan. I would just caution that we probably won't have the staff capacity to reconvene that group in the immediate term, but we'll continue to work with you as our council to determine when we would have that capacity to bring them back and what the expectation would be of their new charter or other efforts that they could provide to the town.
Okay, thank you. And we do have the plan, and so we've got a roadmap for that, so to speak. Okay, any other comments on safety? All right, it looks like we have consensus on that item. I'll move to prudent financial management. Comments here. Vice Mayor Badami.
Thank you. So, prudent financial management, this hasn't been updated probably in about 5 years. So I have a couple of suggestions for bullet points, and that would be, because I'm really looking at being goal-oriented here, that we develop a 5-year structurally balanced and sustainable operating forecast. And I would like to see us develop a 5-year fully funded capital plan.
Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Really, I think that would be sort of more measurable, and there is a bullet point to explore new revenue opportunities, and I think that could be a sub-bullet or an implementation item to the operational plan, because we're not only looking, I think, at revenue opportunities, but also at cost opportunities, and that all adds up to a sustainable 5-year plan. The word forecast was used. I think, to me, it's a plan is a little more forceful language there, so I would be in favor of that as well. So I think that would make a difference. In terms of the other ones, the first bullet I think is still important, and I think the sale or lease of properties is also important. So it would be the middle bullet that I would recommend changing to what the Vice Mayor had suggested.
Councilmember Moore.
Vice Mayor, can you repeat? Can you repeat what you said?
Of course.
Thank you.
So I have 2 recommendations, and again, I'm very goal-oriented here, and these can be measurable. So develop a 5-year structurally balanced and sustainable operating forecast, and develop a 5-year fully funded capital plan.
Okay, great. Thank you. So question for staff. So reading the staff report, my understanding is that we really can't be adding a whole lot of bullet points, and I would be curious to hear from perhaps our finance director about how much extra staff time those might take.
So I'll start, and I'm sure our finance director will contribute. So we currently do a 5-year forecast, which we will be bringing to you on February 21st. Having a goal of a structurally balanced and sustainable forecast is a different type of goal. So, we can certainly do the forecast based on all of the trends and the data that we are getting. But in order to have that structurally balanced and sustainable forecast means that council is going to need to be providing some specific direction in terms of revenue enhancements as well as other pieces. So it really is a forecast. I would not call it a plan because our budget is more of a plan. But I think if we can be together in terms of what that goal looks like for 5 years on the operating side, that would be very helpful. The capital side, it's a little bit easier because the capital plan is more flexible. So if you have fewer things in your capital plan, we can come up with a 5-year way of funding it. But the operating is a little bit tougher because as you heard this evening, there are a lot of demands on our our operating portfolio. A lot of community stakeholders would love support from the town, and those are going to be some tough conversations for our council moving forward. So we will have a budget direction discussion on the 21st, so you can weigh in on all of those ideas. But if I may just ask our finance director to add any other points. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gitong Bari, Finance Director. Our town manager really just summarized that we will come back with a forecast in February, and we have to see where the data is trending, and we can start from there, just as our town manager said. And we usually present a 5-year capital program and with a plan, and most of the project fully funded. However, we have a couple of big grant-related projects when we usually go out for grant and have the projects for shower ready. But that's a little bit easier to do.
Okay, Councilmember Moore finish, and then Vice Mayor Badami.
Perfect, thank you. So just so I'm clear, the proposal is things that we're largely already doing.
Yes, and I think, and I do want to support the council in thinking longer term. I think it's very healthy for our town to be thinking not only in terms of how do we have a balanced budget next year, but what is the plan moving forward over 5 years. So I want to encourage that longer term thinking because I think it is very healthy for us. It's just as we go further out, there's more uncertainty. So even for this year, we don't know how deep the projected recession might be, and that could alter our revenues significantly. It could also alter our costs as inflationary pressures hit our equipment and supply, needs as well. But I do want to thank you for thinking about, that longer term view, and we look forward to working with the council on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Vice Mayor Badami.
I just want to reiterate that when you look at the heading prudent financial management, we're trying to be prudent here and develop a plan. This is something that we should just strive for. We just have a responsibility as a council to consider the fiscal health of our town. We may not meet these goals, but there's nothing wrong with putting this in as a prudent priority for our town.
I have a question. So, I mean, given that we do we go through 5-year forecast every year, and as you go further out in time, the uncertainty bars get larger. Are you saying then that prudent means we move to the bottom of the uncertainty bar? So if we think we're going to be on a trend like this, but to be prudent, we just shove everything down and say we're going to go with the lowest possible expectation for revenue?
This is why we have a finance commission. So I tasked them with solving these issues for us.
Okay, I guess I just don't understand what the ask is then.
The ask is to update the priorities because they haven't been updated in about 5 years. And because we have a structural deficit, this would be a good time, we've already acknowledged it, to memorialize it here and strive for better fiscal health.
Okay, Councilmember Hudes and then Councilmember Rennie.
Yeah, I think that it's just plain responsible for the town to be a little bit more specific than something that says explore new revenue opportunities. You could check that off without really doing anything. And so if this is going to be something that achieves our strategic plan, our financial ability, I think we need to make that language stronger along the lines of what the Vice Mayor suggested. I would also add that everything that we heard tonight is going to put even more questions about our finances, and it's going to be extremely challenging to come up with the ability to fund some of these things that are just so important to our community in all of the categories, that I think we need to improve our game in this area of financial management and not just have sort of wishy-washy language of explore, but to set a goal to develop a structurally balanced and sustainable 5-year forecast.
Thank you. Councilmember Rennie.
Thank you. So I've been sitting here listening and thinking, and I have trouble with what Vice Mayor Badami first said, but her last words actually struck an aha for me, that I think that the wording might want to be an additional bullet that says something, and I'm terrible at wordsmithing, something closer to cure forecasted structural deficit, because I think that's what we're really trying to do. When we talk about a fully funded capital plan, that just means takes things off the budget. So it's, and I don't think that we don't do anything. It's a paper exercise. Having a 5-year budget plan, I'm trying to, that's balanced. I'm really, what we're trying to do is cure the structural deficit. we could play a game with the 5-year budget plan and say, well, in year 2, we're down 700,000, so we just assume we're going to, take 2 FTEs off that year or something like that, or we assume, we'll pass a partial tax then. And I'm not sure it works as well as actually getting at the meat of the problem. So I'm a little more in favor of wording more along the lines, again, I'm open to other other wording, but something like cure forecasted structural deficit.
Councilmember Hudes.
While I completely support that goal, I think it's too narrow because there are elements of the 5-year plan that are not related to the structural deficit. They're related to the grants that we're getting and other sources of income that are not technically part of the structural deficit, which is why I think the word structurally balanced accomplishes that. But then there's the and sustainable word there that then brings in some of the other financial management elements. So I think it would be better to include that language, the word sustainable, in there as well.
Well, I'm for our sustainability at every level, so do we have any other comments? Or does this wording make sense to staff, and is this something that we can work with?
Well, we can certainly work with the general concept, but I am hearing multiple ideas now from the council, so having some kind of reconciliation or I don't know if this is something that you're going to want to vote on, but this cure the forecasted structural deficit is very different than the proposal by the vice mayor. So it would help to have council's clarity.
Clear as mud at the moment. Councilmember Moore.
So I have a different issue. I just want to make sure we don't end this item. I have a different thing in prudent financial management that I want to talk about, but I think we should finish this first.
Yeah, and if I may, one way we can look at this is we've already been tasked with the we've asked our finance commission to give us ideas about how to address the forecasted deficits. So that's already work underway, and we're hoping that we'll get some recommendations at their February 13th meeting so that we can bring that forward to you. Again, this is ongoing work that we do all of the time. It's really core to municipal government, and every year councils are faced with what are your trade-offs, what are the things you want to invest in, what are the core services you want to invest in, what are the community grants, for example. That dollar can go up and down, so there are a lot of variables to get to a balanced budget. And certainly revenue is a key piece of this. We could have a whole study session just on the mechanics of the budget and where the different levers are and what's going to really make a difference in terms of addressing the underlying forces that are with us. So, we might be able to, if you want to move on, because I know we have a lot to cover tonight, I think we have the gist of the idea. I think Councilmember Rennie created, some space to just talk about let's cure our forecasted structural deficit. There's an interest in, well, let's make sure that the whole package is balanced and sustainable. So I think we have enough to work on in general, but I am hearing different things. So we will try and carry forward those differences so that way you can continue to have this conversation as we work through our budget for next year and into the future.
Councilmember Hudes.
So I'm comfortable with the way the town manager has described it, as long as this gets turned over to the Finance Commission with those words to work on it and help us get there.
And then one of the things I'd like to add is as we set our strategic priorities across the board, I hope all of our commissions are listening, so as they set their priorities for the upcoming year, they reflect what the council has set and they align. So this is for all commissions to help them do their work for the year. Okay, so we are not done with this priority yet, or this, this area of prudent financial management. Councilmember Moore, what did you want to add?
Thank you, Mayor. So this is something that was talked about in the staff report. So when it comes to seller leasing certain town properties, I think this is really important. I think we need to be thinking a lot about this. We have few town properties, and just to take a quick step back, I submitted an addendum. So this is all kind of going through a few of the things that were in that. The one thing that was in this item was the use of the town-owned land at 224 West Main, and I would be really supportive of using that for some sort of affordable housing. I think that affordable housing can be a big tent term. I don't think we need to get down to the nitty gritty of what exactly goes there tonight. We probably shouldn't. But I think there's a real opportunity to use town-owned land to create housing for people that need it in our community. And that's rare. And so I would be very supportive of using the property at 224 West Main for affordable housing and just providing that direction to staff.
I have a comment. I think we should leave this on as it is and have this item come back to the council so we can discuss each of the properties and what to do with it. Respectfully, I don't know if we want to put that on this. You're just talking about
just direct. No word changing, no language changes. Just the interest.
Just what's under it
yeah.
for you. Okay, thank you, Councilmember Rennie.
So just adding to that, first of all, I guess it's prudent financial management to make use of our assets, but the affordable housing seems to fall under quality of life more. So whatever category we're in, we've talked about this site a lot before. We tried to create affordable housing here for those that don't remember. Because we're losing parking spaces, and we've always had complaints that we don't have enough parking in town, and we've lost parking spaces now to parklets for good reason. We tried to build something there that would have a parking garage and then some affordable units and then some market rate units to help pay for it. And after all of that, about 6 years ago, we were still $8 million short from how we were going to get it done, and I'm sure it's even worse now. So there is some challenge to just losing more parking spaces for affordable housing. But I understand we have this new property, which I haven't looked at, that's at Pine and Cahill Court or something like that. What's that? Calf Hill. I haven't been over there, but I'm wondering if that's a more suitable site to go after affordable housing. And I, heard that Ms. Chapin is interested in maybe replicating, and so there, some possibilities there of trying to get somebody to help do it for us and us provide the land and end up with the result, but not somehow having to come up with all the money for it that we may not be able to. So I'm just adding that it might be worth considering that other site instead.
Okay, and I would advocate at a future meeting we get into those two, because we're still on priorities right now, and we can talk about what to do with the properties at another meeting when it's agendized. Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. So yeah, I'm fine with even providing the direction that we should use town-owned. We should consider town-owned property for affordable housing. I'll just add to talk about the mayor, the former mayor, Councilmember Rennie was talking about. There's a lot of new money out there in the last few years, especially from the county and different partners, especially if you have property. There are affordable housing developers that are really interested in developing that property, especially as you increase affordability. So I don't think we should count out the 224 West Main property for affordable housing. But I agree that using potentially this other property would be great too.
So we have lots to discuss on another meeting. All right, so are we done with, I'm not in a rush. I just want to make sure that we are focused because we're only halfway through on our chart here. So do we have everything captured, it sounds like? All right, so finishing prudent financial management, I'm going to follow the arrows and go down to quality of life, which contains a lot. So we've got community vitality with a large number of items under there, diversity, equity, inclusion efforts. Oh, good, we have it up here, so I don't have to read it to everyone. I hate it when people read PowerPoints. So we've got everything under there, and I'm ready to take comments from people. And this is a lot. Okay, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. So in my addendum, I had a few different language changes on here that I can talk about first and then kind of get into some of the more nitty gritty. One of the first language changes was on that first or the second item under community vitality, which is community where older adults thrive and senior roadmap. So I had kind of two thoughts on this. One is that wording is just a little funny. So if we want to change that, that could make it a little bit more clear. But I also thought that the addition of support implementation of senior roadmap would be a good addition, because I think we're now kind of moving into the implementation phase. I know that senior roadmap is not quite completed, but I think we're anticipating it will be in the next month or so. And so I think we should be thinking about moving that forward. I don't know, Mayor, if you'd rather talk about items as we bring them up, or I can talk about all the language changes.
For me, why don't, unless people want to discuss each point, 1 second, Town Manager.
I just want to say that we have made tremendous progress on the senior roadmap, and that will probably be coming to you very, very shortly. I think I would caution about presuming that the plan is exactly what the council wants to implement. There may be things that you might want to refine or have staff analyze or consider. So it's been a lot of hard work by our seniors, a lot of great work, but it's almost like you're assuming that it's exactly what you want and you haven't seen it yet. So I would just caution, I think having the roadmap on here already indicates that it's a priority. But I would just caution about saying we're going to implement it when you haven't even seen it yet.
One comment I was going to make was, if you don't like the wording and you need a verb in there, if we could say adopt a senior roadmap or something. Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, I would agree with that completely. I think to take it to this point and then, say we may not do anything, I don't think reflects the will of the community at all. The senior roadmap is whatever the council says it is. So it isn't what the draft is. So I think, adopt a senior roadmap would accomplish that language change and make it stronger.
Thank you for the verb, Mayor.
And I don't think I was hearing anyone say nothing's happening. I think one of the values that I think we all hold is that we don't want to have a lot of work happen and then drop it. So we want to continue things, but we're always refining and we are always going to have limits, so we can see what we do. But so we're good with throwing in the word adopt a. Okay. Councilmember Rennie.
I actually wanted to question the adopt. I thought I read in the addendum, and it may have been my own changing of the wording, I thought it was execute on a senior road map versus adopt. And so do we really want adopt or do we want to execute on it?
So that's your wording. But yeah, I used...
okay, same thing.
So I said support implementation of. I think we need a verb there. It could be support senior roadmap and Nick's implementation. But I think adopt is good. I don't have an issue with adopt.
I think if we adopt a plan, we're making a commitment. Okay, anyway, we're Vice Mayor.
I support adopt. I think that's appropriate.
Okay, adopt a plan. Okay, what else do we have here? Councilmember Moore.
So these might be a little easier. I had a few deletions in my addendum, so I think there's a few things that we have completed that I think would be good to just take off of this document. So the three things, and please, staff, correct me if any of these are not completed. The two easy ones I think are Gatos Lane affordable housing, those that has been built, and as the speaker said, there are folks moving into that, which is very exciting. The other is objective standards, which we have passed. And then semi-permanent parklets, I think that are we to the point of completion on those, or is that, am I jumping the gun on that?
Good evening, Monica Wren, Economic Vitality Manager. We are nearing the end of those. We did just extend the Economic Recovery Agreement through the end of this fiscal year to support the project being completed. It's really going to depend on how these storms unfold. January was a rough month for construction, so I'm hopeful that it will be done by the middle of the fiscal year, but we can't confirm that it'll be wrapped up that quickly.
Okay, so continue. So it sounds like we're keeping that one on because the work is still going.
Right, I was going to say we could even add complete semi-permanent parklets if we want to make sure that we kind of get this done in this year.
That may not be under our control.
Fair enough.
If it's weather related.
I believe that the grant money has to be spent by the end of this year anyways for ARPA. So, that would be the drop dead date, but I'm very hopeful June 30th will be close.
Okay. We'll go to the Vice Mayor.
Okay, so if we're going down this list, it looks like we're also on economic vitality and pandemic recovery. So in consideration of the Chamber's letter, what I believe that I support that they had provided in their letter, that we streamline the permitting process. That's just been chaotic, where we have lost some potential businesses that would be very good anchors for our town, and just really promote community vitality and economic vitality at the same time. And another component that I would like to see added that could also provide revenue for our town would be destination marketing.
Councilmember Rennie.
So I'm going to second the permit. I had written down permit time reduction as a bullet there, so I'm going to second that one. I'm going to maybe make an alternate suggestion. I'm not sure we really need to keep the semi-permanent parklets there anymore. As it's not, if we take it off, it doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It's just not at a high level strategic. We've done all of the hard strategic work to get it, and it's kind of on a glide path now. So my thought is we take it off just to simplify the list. Anyway, I know people are saying, well, leave it on, but I like to go a little simpler because staff isn't really going to go, oh, we got to run off and do all these things to make it happen. It really is on a glide path, in my opinion. So I would take it off for simplification.
I have a question for staff. I imagine the time spent on this is decreasing, but is it on a glide path, or are you still putting a lot of time into it?
While the process is winding down, there's still quite a bit of time that goes into it. And now we're in the step of the parklets where we're doing the second half of the grant. So there is a pretty time-intensive process, first in the manager's office, to go through all the paperwork to make sure what is being submitted matches the agreements. And then we pass it off to finance, who then does a review and writes the check. So there is a fair amount of time. It's a little bit different than what it used to be, and probably is reduced, but I don't want to say that it's necessarily always a glide, because with each project we have an individual business. And so a lot of times we are re-teaching, relearning, reworking with each person. And so the process doesn't necessarily get easier for the stakeholder because they're not learning from each other. It's a one-on-one kind of process.
Okay, from my perspective, because strategic priorities reflects additional work that our staff is doing above and beyond day-to-day running the town, and if this is taking time and energy, I think it makes more sense to leave it on. We'll be quite happy to knock it off next year, if that's not going to be too distracting for you, Councilmember Rennie. Okay, Councilmember Hudes.
I don't think I have much to contribute to that, but I do want to remind people this is a 2-year strategic plan that we're developing here too, and it would be good to say complete and declare victory on something. And that one seems to be within reach, but I'm not going to dwell on that. The one I wanted to make sure we added to quality of life, since it sounds like it didn't make it onto safety, was address the needs of unhoused population. you could argue that maybe address is too broad of a term, and obviously, you'd have to define the population and the needs. But I think unless we say something, we're going to just leave it off. So I was proposing that.
I'm in complete concurrence with that. I think address is going to look very different over the course of 2 years, and depending on how our study session goes and what we decide to do, there's a lot of facets to it. And so I think for me, that's a good capture without getting too specific. Councilmember Moore.
So, thank you, Mayor. The word I used in my addendum, and it seems like we're actually putting this under its own bullet, which I think is much better. The word that I used was support, and I think that that's actually really important. There's a lot of different ways you can address homelessness, and I think that it's really important that we are being supportive of our homeless community. I think that I think that this is a really exciting issue to address over a 2-year period, because I think that there's actually a lot of synergy between a lot of different community groups. We heard from, people that are on the hyper compassionate side of things, who are involved in the faith community, and those sorts of folks who are really wanting to do everything they can to support our homeless residents. And we also heard from the business community and other folks who might be more interested in this issue from a business perspective. But I do think that because of the nature of the issue, if we are not supporting these folks in some way, we are not going to be making progress on the issue. And then the other language I would use is so how I would word this is support needs of homeless residents. And I think it's important to call out that they are residents just like any other resident.
Thank you. Councilmember Rennie.
I'm wondering if we might want to add to this, the partners in the wording somehow, and I'm not exactly sure, but something like work with our partners to support homeless needs or something to that effect.
Councilmember Moore.
I'm fine with that. I think that the partners language is good. I think we're definitely not going to address this issue on our own, and I think it's going to be very much a collaborative process. So if referencing the addendum, I'm also interested in putting partnerships somewhere else when it comes to affordable housing. So just wanted to make that separation, but I'll get to that when we get there.
Okay, so how are we with support needs of homeless people?
I think that's
or
fine.
residents.
I
Yeah.
don't think there's a distinction.
Okay, and I like the word resident in there, recognizing that they are our residents. Okay, so we've got that point, and then we'll continue with Councilmember Moore unless somebody else has a comment right now. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor. So I also proposed affordable housing and adding partnerships. I think this is an important distinction because right now this says affordable housing, and as I've said tonight, affordable housing is a really, really huge tent of directions that we can go. And so what I would like to direct our town staff to do is be working more on and this is extra, so that's important to consider, but I'm working more on a proactive basis. It doesn't have to be much time at all, but I think that there are a lot of cities, and you can look at Mountain View, Sunnyvale, Campbell, a lot of our neighbors that are proactively working to find affordable housing partners. One of the very, very hardest parts from my understanding, and I work professionally in this space, is having a community that is willing to play ball. And so I think having town staff be proactive in that effort will go a very long way. And I think affordable housing is another one of those kind of synergy issues where we've heard folks that are, again, all the way on the compassionate side to folks that are a lot more concerned about growth. But I think that if we actually want to get affordable housing built, which is something that I hear a lot from members of our community, we need to be reaching out to partners and making those connections and saying that we are interested in building affordable housing in Los Gatos.
I had a question for, oh, well, okay, go ahead, Vice Mayor Badami.
Question for staff. Do we have the staff to do this, and what department would it fall on? Community development?
So we don't have the staff right now because we're actually wrapping up our affordable housing plan known as the housing element. And then we're going to have a lot of high priority action items coming out of the housing element once it's certified to really take some time. This is the type of work that would typically be done either in a community development department through their housing function, and we outsource our housing function, or through the town manager's office. And I know we just don't have that bandwidth right away, but again, this is a 2-year plan, as was stated earlier, and I think the notion of partnerships is consistent with where our housing element is going. So I think that it's all in sync. It's just, we're not going to be able to get much done, I don't think, in 23. But let me just see if Director Paulson has anything to add.
Thank you for the question. Joel Paulson, Community Development Director. I don't have it in front of me, but as Ms. Pervetti mentioned, there are actually implementation programs that are looking for the town to actively pursue those types of opportunities. So that will be part of the implementation of the housing element, because that is definitely one of the goals where jurisdictions need to show meaningful effort to try to encourage affordable housing.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, yes, Councilmember Rennie.
I wanted to bring up maybe a new bullet along the idea. I started mentioning it before about, I'm looking through some, the things that people have asked us to put on the priority list. And I think, several of them are things that somebody might say, I sure like to have a commission to do it. And I had mentioned, somebody might want us to have a homeless commission. Well, I suggested maybe that's something that can be added to the community health part of the CHSSC commission. I've had a discussion with the town manager about either maybe you want to call it reimagining or reorganizing our commission. So one bullet on here might be something like reimagine or reorganize our commissions, where we rethink what are the charters of each of them. So for example, we don't have a sustainability commission. A lot of towns have a sustainability commission, but we don't have the staff to keep adding commissions. But I've noticed that some of our commissions we can't fully fill anymore, and I'm wondering if their charter has become narrow in a sense that not as many people are interested. But if we added some things to their charters, broadened their charters, we would get some more people on them. So for example, I don't know if it's the right answer, but one idea I threw around with the town manager, or she threw at me, one of the two, was Parks Commission, for example, adding that to be parks and sustainability because it's environmental oriented. So I really don't want us to add any commissions, but I know there's a lot of asks to add commissions. So I'd like to think about reorganizing commissions to try to cover some of these new things.
I would say that I've had the exact same thoughts, and part of it came from, I think, our commissions, how we define our commissions and what kind of commissions we have. You took a lot of my thoughts, and I don't even think we talked about it, but I have been through some of the transportation commissions, and so we had a transportation and parking commission, and then we created a bike and pedestrian advisory commission, which was quite useful in terms of getting our bike and ped master plan together. But it eventually reached the point where staff was trying to bring roadway improvement projects to one commission or the other, and who is it? And eventually it became, it's all transportation. And so we merged them to make complete streets. And I think that, a word that comes to me is either realign or redefine our commissions, because I think we do have a crying need, maybe for a sustainability commission or for some place for it to have a home. And we may need to redefine some of our commissions. Are they still relevant? Is their mission meeting what we need in our community? And are there other needs that are not being met? And where does it make sense to put them? So I don't know if that can be a bullet point. Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, I think it's a very good idea to look at redefining our commissions, and the concept that I would sort of emphasize there would be to align our commissions with the strategic priorities, because that'll define the way we redefine them. And there's the other side of that is then it would make an additional sense to do what we discussed at the last council meeting, Mayor, and that is to sync up the work plans of the commissions with the council. I think it'd be a really valuable step to add something along those lines.
Okay, Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Mayor. I agree. I think this is a great idea, and I think when we are reimagining these commissions, one of the final things I had in here was the Arts and Culture Commission currently has like a $1,500 budget. I think it'd be great to, at least for our project-oriented commissions, to have some small discretionary dollar amount that kind of empowers them to do the projects that they're interested in. They're spending a lot of their time and energy in this, so I think could be a good opportunity for that. And then I also just want to point out, and we've been talking about the Sustainability Commission. I think that's a fantastic idea, especially with potentially combining it with the Parks Commission. The other commission that I wanted to highlight that's actually called out in the potential of it is called out in the general plan is the Social and Racial Justice Commission. And I think that is one of the biggest tangibles that could come from this very important diversity, equity, and inclusion action plan. And so I know we're not there yet. That's going to come out later, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be in here. But I think that should be thought about as well as we talk about this conversation of reimagining the commissions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it sounds like we're all recognizing that, you know, our commissions they have people in them, they have volunteers, and to the extent that we have community interest, we need to line up with our strategic priorities. So I don't know what the implementation will look like, but either realign, align, reconfigure.
There are a lot of great verbs there. So redefine was the one that I heard a lot, and then reimagine. So we'll work through the actual verb, but I think what we'll do is I'll work with you, Mayor, and we'll figure out what would be a good structure for the conversation, because we would want our commissioners to also be part of that discussion.
Definitely. I think that has to be a two-way conversation, and they might have some of the best ideas of what additional areas make sense to them. And this is not going to be something done in a meeting or in a couple of months, but an overall evolution. Okay. Vice Mayor.
Thank you. So clearly, council has wish lists in refining our priorities. I think it's been a really good conversation tonight. But I would also like to provide direction to staff in preparing the budget that we consider abating the lease costs to LG Rec and NUMU, just like other towns. And when I look at community vitality, they check all the boxes. They're really core and critical to our community vitality. They check the box for diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts, provides a gathering place where older adults thrive. It provides services for complementing the senior roadmap. It provides overall community engagement for all ages. It's venues for events, venues to booster mental health. And lastly, they provide a clubhouse, and it's a lifeline to working parents with young children, which is going to be even more important as we move forward with affordable housing for lower income levels. And I can attest to that as a young single mother who was renting, raising a daughter, that I took advantage of that clubhouse, and it was a lifeline. It was so valuable to me and so valuable to my daughter, and I would hate to lose that.
Okay, thank you. I think we will talk about money next week. I also know that the rec center doesn't do clubhouse anymore, the schools do, but they do provide a lot of services. I would say that on here we would probably want to put something under where we talk about partners, or maybe a general reference to working with partners, but I think that will fall under our budget in our February meeting. Councilmember Rennie.
Yeah, I wanted to comment, and I know it is budget also related, but again, you know, I agree with the strategic idea of supporting NUMU, supporting LGS Rec, supporting other senior programs like KCAT. I do think it's going to be a challenge to support at the levels that they're asking. Again, it's really budget time, but I wanted to put in perspective a little bit my thoughts on it. Our ongoing budget from before the pandemic really had a little bit of lease reduction for LGS Rec that we got senior services in return. Fortunately, because with the ARPA money, the American Recovery Protection Act money, we were able over the last 2 years, I think, to give quite a bit of rent relief, but it was using one-time money. It's not using the ongoing revenues of the town to pay for it. So I just want to, people that are asking to understand that I don't remember the right number, but maybe we had about a $50,000 budget reduction, rent reduction for LGS Rec, and they're asking us to all of a sudden go to $750,000 that we somehow have to, every year pull out of our ongoing tax revenues. I think that's going to be challenging. We'll have to figure it out at budget time, but I sort of want to set the expectation that our budget this year, we had to balance by taking money out of our pension fund, about $1.6 million. Next year's budget is looking like it's going to be short also, and then you're asking us to come up with more money. I want to say yes, I want to support these, but I don't know I don't know how we're going to support at the level they're asking. So this is something, hopefully they're listening and we'll be thinking over before we come to budget time next time. But, so again, two things. Yes, I want to support. I don't think we can support at the level that they are asking.
Okay, town manager.
I was just going to say that as we think about those partnerships and the town's relationship to the partners, we also have a community grant program that uses our general fund money and invests in community organizations, and it is a competitive program. And so I think we also just need to think about the playing field of all of the great organizations within the town, and what that looks like. So we can certainly talk about this more on February 21st when we look at the 5-year forecast and we understand where our budget is and what those trade-offs are. But I do want to just point out that there are other needs within our community, and we have a lot of those folks go through a process every year, and they're not here tonight. So, as your manager, I need to kind of take care of everybody, and I think about, what is that playing field for all of these organizations that we have. So, how is our grant process part of that? So it's just, it does raise some bigger questions. And we were thinking, working with the mayor, of course, is one thing we could do is revisit our grant program and give you a status of how it's working under the current rubric. That might be of interest to council to see if it is still meeting your needs and priorities. But that's a really great way of us investing in community. And I know some of the folks who you heard from tonight also benefit from community grants in addition to other resources. So just wanted to put that out there, that there are other great organizations that also contribute to our community character.
Thank you for that reminder and perspective. Councilmember Rennie.
And I just want to put a little perspective on the scale. We spend about $130,000 on community grants, and LGS Rec is asking for $750,000. So there's a big difference in scale here.
Councilmember Hudes, and then I wanted to talk about another item on here.
I mean, clearly we're going to need to honor the conversation that was started about the facilities and rent relief and all of that. I also think that our community grant program is excellent, and the folks who participate in it really take their commitment to the community seriously. So one of the things we might look at as part of the budget is increasing the pot of the community grant program as an alternative to doing one-off grants as well. So I would be interested in having that discussion. I think it's really part of the budget conversation rather than what we're doing tonight, but I'm glad we're beginning to address this issue.
Great. I mean, I think this conversation is giving us a lot of information for how to move forward in February. One of the questions, I have a question for our economic vitality manager. I highlighted it so I can't see it. Under policies and ordinances, under quality of life, I'm wondering if that includes some of the kind of temporary changes we made during the pandemic. And if I know that got mentioned in our meeting with the chamber, but will those be re-examined and brought forward to see how much help that was and how much we want to continue?
Yes, thank you for the question. It would be my hope that as we approach the end of the fiscal year, when that economic recovery resolution does come to an end, that there would be a discussion about how those policies and those streamlined changes affected the business community. What it allowed and how business grew from it, maybe what changes were put into place, and then how we could memorialize some of those. So they may take ordinance changes, so that would be something that would be, again, like a planning commission to a town council, since they are in that section of the code. But if that is the will of the council to see some of those streamlined and those business supports happen, then we can definitely continue to work on those. And I do suspect there would be support from the business community for that.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure that was captured under there, so that is under pandemic recovery. And then the other thing is I definitely support the effort, I think it was already put down by Councilmember Rennie, to look at streamlining our licensing process for businesses or permitting. Thank you. Yeah, I'm becoming verb and noun and adjective challenged at this point. Okay. Anything else under quality of life? Councilmember Moore.
One last quick one. So under environmental sustainability / climate change, I know the town is already doing this, and we've included things in the general plan, but I'd just like to call out again supporting plant-based eating education and continuing the efforts to do that.
Okay, do we feel like our strategic priorities are reflected by this conversation? Fantastic. Okay, now we are going to close the circle and move to traffic and transportation. So, Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor. I can get us started with my kind of one big change on this language. So we have heard a lot from our community in the last couple of weeks about the issues around streets and street safety and all of that. And I think that we should do something in this document to, tell our community that that's an important thing. And so my proposal would be to change transportation demand management, which to me feels like is pretty much exclusively talking about kind of congestion, to traffic calming, which I think is a much larger category and I think still encompasses those bullets that are beneath it.
Thank you. When I read your input, what struck me is I'm not opposed to it. My feeling is transportation demand management, all of the little sub-bullets under there are related to TDM. And that is something that we require of projects going forward. And then I thought, I know we don't want to add priorities, but I would like to add a bullet of traffic calming / safety to indicate that that is a priority. I mean, we talk about safety being a priority, traffic safety, but I think it should be on here. So slightly different thing, but I think these other measures, Measure B projects, bike ped improvement, community shuttle, all have to do with TDM. And so I would prefer to have a separate budget or a separate bullet. I'm almost done for traffic calming and safety.
And if I may, just for clarification, our town departments take safety as a core service of what we do. So while it's fine to acknowledge it as something council cares about and reflects that we've heard our community these last couple of weeks, I completely understand that. But it is something that we do, whether it's traffic safety, public safety, other forms of safety. It's pretty much that's basic, a core service of who we are. And then for traffic calming, I see that maybe the council member is using it in the broadest sense of the term, not the technical way, because we do have a traffic calming program in terms of do we want speed humps and stop signs and all of that. But what I'm hearing is the larger issue of how are we managing our streets for all users and all of that. So just a clarification that traffic calming, again, is a very distinct program that we offer. So it is something to think about. I think there's certainly room to elaborate on and refine our language to make sure it reflects everything. But safety is really kind of it's so core to who we are. So I don't want you to think that, oh, well, if it's not on the list, we aren't doing it. In fact, safety is probably what we do the most of.
Thank you for the reminder of our core values. One of the things I was thinking is, though, under priorities, maybe it just says safety for all road users or something, because I do think, at least in my mind and in my experience, in the last couple years, we are really working toward safety for all users over vehicle throughput. And I think there was definitely a mentality up until about 10 years ago that vehicle throughput was the highest value. And so even if it's in our core values, I think calling it out under our strategic priorities reflects what we're starting to hear from more and more residents. This is a huge priority for me. Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that the mayor's earlier comment about adding a bullet of traffic calming and safety would be really additive to this because, some of the things that are under transportation demand management are part of sort of a state or regional program, but we have a particular issue in town right now that needs attention, and so I think that it's important. Maybe it doesn't stay on there forever. Maybe we are able to do some studies of the areas that need to be addressed and get some things started with it. But I think it would be very responsive to our community to put traffic calming / safety on there as a separate bullet.
And we can discuss it. I think because traffic calming has a very specific meaning, maybe traffic safety or safety for all users. I mean, I think we do know that when we calm traffic, we increase safety for drivers as well as everybody anywhere near the street. Councilmember Moore?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm totally open to any of that. I was trying to get really creative with not adding any bullet points, so I'm totally good with adding bullet points. The one thing I would kind of add on to this to make sure we're addressing the needs of the community, and this isn't in language necessarily, but more in direction, is that I think that this has been a particular concern for folks in East Los Gatos, and so I think we should. There's almost it's almost like traffic safety being the idea, and then the direction being in areas of the town that have been underinvested in. And I think that's important for all kinds of traffic infrastructure. I think I've seen a lot of areas of the town that have been recently incorporated and are further out into the away from the core downtown that have been I think underinvested in, and so I think that making sure that we are focusing on the kind of factors that created the particular accident, but also things that could happen in the future is important as well.
Councilmember Rennie, I was going to point out we have an implementation program. I think RSEJ-N which is capital improvement prioritization, create a defined set of criteria that measures and prioritizes equitable distribution of capital improvement projects townwide. And I have seen some improvements on Pollard. I mean, I think there's been intention. So, you know, continuing that implementation program, I think addresses what you're saying. I agree. Councilmember Rennie.
Thank you. I agree that, you know, adding the bullet looks, you know, it's good. It shows what we want to do, but it also shows what we have been doing. And I wanted to point out some of our history. We've, for a lot of years now, we've certainly been focused on our safe routes to school to make them safer. And I just wanted to mention a lot of the projects that we worked on, right? The Winchester bike lanes and the green bollards were not just about bike safety. It was also narrowing the street to slow it down, so that it, you know, at some point we can even put in some crosswalks. We put an improved crosswalk at Route 9 in Massal where somebody was killed. We're about to put bike lanes and sidewalks on Shannon Road where there's a ton of kids coming in. We have a project on Lynn Avenue, so in the east, almost east end of town, way past where some people call east, at Lynn and Union, there's a lot of kids and there's no sidewalks getting to Union Middle School and even some that go down to the grade school. I'm forgetting the name at the moment. But we have a project to put a path behind under the power lines in there. That's not yet done. We've did on Blossom Hill near Roberts Road in the school, we put in divided lanes because there was a lot of kids riding to school. We found there was a problem with people coming up Blossom Hill and turning right on Roberts. They were blocking the bike lane, so we actually spent money and readjusted that so that the cars turning right wouldn't be blocking the bike lane. We just allocated money for another portion of Blossom Hill in front of Blossom Hill School. A while back, we did some narrowing on Los Gatos Almaden so we could put in crosswalks where people would be. So my point is, we're continuously trying to do more safety projects. We've got the bike bridge over 17 potentially as a safety project, but an expensive one. But I will agree with Councilmember Moore, the ends of the town tend to not get as much attention, although we did do, you know, a little bit. And I think we did an improved crosswalk across Union also, and they were asking for a sidewalk on Union, and we gave them a paved little path instead. You know, it's cheaper than putting in a whole sidewalk so that kids could walk down Union. But I would agree that, you know, the ends of the town don't squeak as loud, so they don't get the attention, and we need to be thinking about investing in those areas also. But I really wanted to point out we've done a lot of safety work, and we're going to continue doing more.
Councilmember Moore.
I just had a quick question for the town attorney. So, because there's an ongoing investigation here, I just want to make sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's on putting, you know, potentially putting the word safety in here. I want to make sure we're not, you know, guaranteeing anything or doing anything that might get us into trouble.
Yeah, there's no harm in continuously improving the infrastructure.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, so I think we're keeping what we have. We've added a bullet point, kind of reiterating or highlighting work that's ongoing and potentially, you know, accelerating. Is there any other input on traffic and transportation? Okay, well, it looks like we've gone through all of our strategic priorities. We were fairly disciplined in terms of not doubling the workload, and I think that's it. So, yes, any closing comments? Councilmember Hudes.
Yeah, I just can't resist making the comment that that tonight I'm truly proud to be part of the Los Gatos community. The folks in our community, you are not only engaged and passionate, but also compassionate and have some brilliant ideas. It's a privilege to be in the room with the real leaders of our town, so many of our citizen leaders. And Town Manager, thank you so much for organizing this session.
Thank you. I agree. I appreciate all the input, and it was so positive, as I mentioned earlier. So we've got a lot of good work ahead of us. Now to figure out how to pay for all of it, we'll be working on the budget. So unless anyone else has some closing comments, the meeting is adjourned.